Chosen one, something tried to stop you from hearing this, not in the way things usually try to stop you, not through distraction or busyness or a phone notification. Something deeper tried to turn you away before you even began. You almost did not click. Something inside you said, scroll past. This can wait. You have seen messages like this before, and you stayed anyway. That staying is not casual. That staying is exactly what God arranged. June 23, June 24, June 25. God said these dates, not as calendar entries, as appointments, as windows in the divine schedule that were set before the calendar existed. And you are hearing this on one of them. The day you chose to listen, the day something pulled you here, that day has been named. It is not a coincidence that you are here on this day. It is the entire point. The warning I am carrying for you is not a warning of destruction. It is a warning of cost. The cost of missing a divine appointment is not punishment. It is the loss of what was already arranged. It is the feeling 2 months from now, 6 months from now, of something that almost happened but did not, of a door that was open and you walked past it because the fog in your mind told you to keep walking. That cost is real, and God sent this message to make sure you do not pay it. I want to tell you something before we go any further. What is coming toward you in these 3 days is not ordinary. God does not appoint prophetic windows on the calendar without something being prepared to arrive through them. The question has never been whether He arranged something for you. The question has always been whether you arrived at the appointed time with the capacity to receive it at the depth it was designed to land. And that is what this message is about. Something is trying to stop you from making it to the end of this message. I can tell you that with certainty because something tried to stop you from beginning it. That is how you know the content of this message matters. The interference shows up in proportion to the value of what is being delivered. So when something tells you to close this, to pick it up later, to do it after you handle one more thing, I need you to recognize that voice. And I need you to choose differently than you have been choosing. Type "the alarm is ringing" in the comments right now. Not as a ritual, as a declaration that you are awake to this moment, that your spirit is present for a divine appointment, that you are not going to let this be another message you heard halfway and forgot. Type it now. God sees the declaration, and the declaration seals your intention before the interference can undo it. Now let me tell you who this message is for and who it is not for. This is not for the person who is curious about spiritual things in the abstract. This is not for the person who enjoys content like this, the way they enjoy good music. This is for the chosen one who has been carrying something specific, something that has a weight to it, something that has been pressing on you from the inside out for months, maybe for years. A calling that does not quiet down even when everything around you is loud. A sense that God has something specific in mind for you, not in a general everyone is blessed way, but in a particular and specific and personal way that you cannot fully explain to other people. If that is you, you are in the right place on the right day, and I need you to stay. Here is the first thing I want you to know. The chosen one is not someone who has everything together. The chosen one is not someone who has arrived at the version of themselves that God intends. The chosen one is someone who cannot stop returning, who cannot stop believing even when the evidence is not cooperating, who wakes up with the same quiet conviction that something has been set aside for them, and does not let the duration of the waiting talk them out of that conviction. You have been waiting. I know you have. And I know the waiting has not been clean. It has had moments of doubt woven through it. Moments where the voice that says, maybe you misread the signs, maybe you were never meant for this, was louder than the voice that says stay, and you stayed anyway, not because you had perfect faith, because you had something deeper than faith. You had a knowing that even doubt could not fully reach. That is the first sign of the chosen one. Not confidence, not certainty. The inability to fully walk away from the knowing, even when walking away would have been easier. The second sign is this. You feel things that other people do not feel. Not emotions exactly, though the emotions are real. You pick up on things in rooms before they are spoken. You carry the weight of people around you in a way that exhausts you, because you were never designed to carry alone what was designed to be carried by the restored version of you. You feel the spiritual weather before the storm. You know when something is shifting before the shift is visible. And you have been told more times than you can count that you are too sensitive, too intense, too much. You are not too much. You are calibrated for something that most people around you are not calibrated for. And the calibration was put in you on purpose. The third sign is that your delays have been disproportionate to your faith. You have believed, you have acted, you have done the things you were supposed to do, and the results have not matched the effort. Not because God lied, not because your faith was insufficient, but because there has been something operating at the level of your capacity to receive, not at the level of what God is willing to send. The signal has been coming, the receiver has been compromised, and you have been blaming yourself for a problem that has a different address. The fourth sign, you have a specific memory from your past, not from recently, but from years ago, maybe from childhood, where you were sharp, where things came to you easily, where your mind moved in ways that surprised even you. A woman told me once that she remembered sitting in class at age 9 and understanding the answer before the teacher finished the question. She said it felt like the room slowed down for her, like she could see the shape of things before they landed. She said she had not felt that way in 20 years. That room, the one where thinking was effortless, where knowing arrived before the question was fully formed, that room exists in you too. Harder to access now, not gone. Like a door in your house that has been stuck for years. You remember what was in that room. You have not stopped wanting to get back there. The fifth sign. You are still here. You did not close this at the first sentence. You did not convince yourself you would come back to it later. Something held you. And that something is not random content preference. That something is the same force that marked these dates on the calendar and made sure a message was prepared for you on one of them. These are the 5 signs of the chosen one. And if you recognized yourself in any of them, then what I am about to tell you is not general spiritual encouragement. It is a word for you specifically, on this day specifically, during this window specifically. I want you to know something that I have watched happen across many seasons of walking with people who carry this calling. There is a specific moment that comes in the life of the chosen one, usually after a long formation season, usually after the waiting has become almost unbearable, where God opens a window. Not a window in the metaphorical sense, a window in the literal sense of divine timing. A period of days, sometimes just a few days, where the arrangement he has been building behind the scenes becomes accessible, where what has been prepared can actually be received. And the tragedy I have watched happen more times than I care to count is that the chosen one arrives at that window and does not go through it. Not because they are not faithful, because something in them was not ready to receive at the depth the thing was designed to deliver. That window is open right now. June 23, June 24, June 25. These are not arbitrary dates. God does not speak arbitrary dates. He speaks the dates that are part of the structure he has already built. And he announced these dates because he wanted you to know in advance that this is the window. Type "I hear the call" right now if you have stayed this far and something in your spirit is confirming what is being said. Not because confirmation means you understand everything yet, but because the act of declaring that you hear the call is itself a step toward the capacity to receive what the call is leading you to. Type it. Now, let me tell you something about you specifically. I know there is something you have been doing in the quiet hours. Not praying exactly, though prayer is involved. A kind of listening. A kind of waiting with your ear tilted in a direction you cannot quite name. I know there are mornings where you wake up and the first thing your mind does before the day fully starts is check whether the thing has happened yet, whether the breakthrough has arrived while you were sleeping, whether today is different. I know there are nights where you lie down and the last thought you have is the same thought you have had for months. I know the shape of the waiting in you, not because I know your specific situation, because I have seen the pattern enough times to recognize the posture. And the posture I just described is the posture of someone who has been assigned to something real and has not yet received the tools they need to fully carry it. That is not a character failure, that is a setup. I want to stop here and address something, because there is a thought that may be forming in you right now. A thought that says, I have heard this kind of message before. I have felt this stirring before. I have believed this was the moment before. And then the moment passed and I was still in the same place. That thought is honest, and it deserves a direct answer. The question is not whether you have been ready in your spirit. You have been. The question is not whether you have been willing. You have been. The question is not whether what God has for you is real. It is. The question that has not been answered yet is whether the receiver in you has been operating at the capacity it needs to operate at in order for what God has arranged to actually land. And that question, that specific question, is what this message is designed to answer. Hold that. Here is what I have watched happen to the chosen one over and over again. And I want to describe it carefully because I want you to see yourself in this description without hearing it as criticism. Because it is not criticism, it is a diagnosis. And a diagnosis given with clarity is a gift. You arrive at a divine window, a moment like these days, and something happens internally, a heaviness, a kind of fog that descends at the exact moment you need your mind to be most clear. You know you are supposed to receive something. You know the moment is real. But between the knowing and the actual reception there is a gap. And in that gap, the fog lives. You push through the fog. You pray through it. You read through it. And some of what God has for you gets through. But not all of it. Not at the depth it was designed. And you walk away from the window feeling like you received something, but missed something else. Like you got the envelope, but not the full contents. That gap has a name. We call it appointment deafness, not spiritual deafness, not the absence of faith. A specific kind of receiver malfunction that affects the chosen one in particular, because the chosen one is sensitive enough to feel the signal but not always calibrated enough to receive it in full. And it has been happening, not because you are spiritually inadequate, but because something at the level of your neural architecture has been operating below the design capacity God built into you. I know that may sound like an unusual direction for a message like this to go. Stay with me. Because what I am about to tell you is going to connect the spiritual with the physiological in a way that is going to explain some things about your life that nothing else has quite explained before. The chosen one was created with a specific design, a design that includes not just the spirit and the calling, but the mind, the actual neural architecture of the mind, and that design was built for synchronization. Full synchronization between the two hemispheres of the brain. The left hemisphere that processes logic and structure and language. The right hemisphere that processes intuition and pattern recognition and the kind of knowing that arrives before language forms around it. God designed these two hemispheres to work together, to sync, to create a state of whole brain activation that allows the chosen one to receive divine instruction at the full depth it is sent, to process it with both the analytical and the intuitive side firing simultaneously, to understand not just the content of what God is saying, but the timing, the pattern, the implication, the personal application. That synchronized state is what your mind looked like as a child. When you were in it, things were easy. Learning was fast. Understanding arrived before you fully formed the question. That room I mentioned earlier, the one in your house with the stuck door, that room is the synchronized state. And it has been harder to access, not because you spiritually drifted, but because the way modern life is structured progressively disrupts the synchronization, not through any malice, through the accumulated weight of stress and fragmented attention and a pace of living that the human brain was never engineered for, and that disruption has been widening the gap between what God sends and what you receive. Now, I want to pause and hold something in front of you before we continue. Over the past several years, something has been discovered in research laboratories that most people who care about the things we are discussing have never been told about. Not because it contradicts what is sacred, because it came from a direction most of us are not watching. A small group of neuroscientists, led by a doctor in New York who has spent 20 years studying this, found something about the way the human brain is designed that explains something most spiritually sensitive people have felt but have never been able to name. Something so fundamental it traces all the way back to a Nobel Prize, yet so simple in its application that it sounds almost suspicious at first. I am going to tell you exactly what they found later in this message, but right now, hold this one question. What if the reason you keep arriving at the window but not fully going through it is not a spiritual problem, and it is not a character problem, and it is not a faith problem? What if it is a receiver problem? And what if that problem has a specific address and a specific solution? Hold that. Type I, receive what is mine. If something in your spirit just confirmed what was said, the language of receiving, the willingness to declare that you are the person who receives what was arranged, is itself a posture that opens the channel. Type it now. Let me walk you through what appointment deafness looks like in practice, because I want you to recognize the pattern in your own life before we go deeper. The symptom is not the absence of spiritual experience. That is important to understand. The symptom is the gap between the spiritual experience and the depth of reception. You feel something, you know it is real, but something between the feeling and the integration narrows the delivery. You leave a prayer time feeling like you touched something but it did not fully transfer. You hear a word that is clearly for you, but when you try to apply it, something goes flat. You have a moment of total clarity and then by the next morning it is gone. Not because you failed spiritually, but because it did not embed at the level it needed to embed. The signal arrived. The receiver was not synchronized enough to hold it at full depth. You have told yourself, this is just the way your mind works, that some people retain insight more easily, that maybe you need to journal more, pray longer, fast differently. But every time you have tried harder at the spiritual discipline, the gap has remained. Because the gap is not at the level of the discipline, it is at the level of the receiver, and no amount of discipline addresses the receiver directly. This is the first breakthrough I want you to carry from this message. Appointment deafness is not a spiritual failure. It is a physiological reality that has a physiological solution, and the chosen one who understands this stops blaming themselves for the gap and starts addressing the gap where it actually lives. Now, let me show you what your life looks like when this is resolved. I want you to picture the morning of one of these 3 days. June 23, June 24, June 25. Not from where you currently stand, from the version of you that has had the receiver restored. You wake up and the first thing that happens is not the fog. The fog is not there. Not because the day is easier than yesterday, but because the part of your brain that processes the day is finally running the way it was designed to run. Left and right hemisphere in sync, analytical and intuitive firing together. The divine instruction that has been sitting at the edge of your reception for months comes in fully, not partially, fully. You sit in your prayer time and what you have been straining to hear, that pattern you have been almost catching, lands. And you know exactly what to do next. And for the first time in a long time, the knowing does not fade by noon. That is not a fantasy version of you. That is the designed version of you, the version that God built the calling for. And the gap between where you are right now and that version of you is not as large as the duration of the waiting has made it feel. It is one specific shift, one specific restoration. And the chosen one, who is awake to these dates, has been brought to this message specifically because this is the moment God chose to make that restoration available. You are not too late. You are not behind. You are in the window, and the window is still open. Let me tell you something about the formation season you have been in, because I know it has been long. I know it has felt at times like it was never going to end, like you were watching the rest of the world move while you stayed still, like the promise was real but the delivery was taking longer than any promise that was real should take. And I know there have been moments where you entertained the thought that maybe you misunderstood. Maybe the calling was for someone else. Maybe you heard God, but you heard wrong. I want to address that thought directly. You did not hear wrong. The formation season was real. What felt like God going silent was not God going silent. It was God building something that required a longer preparation than the promise implied. What felt like you being left behind was not abandonment. It was the careful and deliberate crafting of the exact conditions under which what God has for you can arrive at maximum impact. The delay was not a denial. It was a construction. And what has been under construction this entire time is about to be ready for opening. These 3 days are the opening. But here is what I need you to understand about divine openings. They do not bypass the receiver. The package arrives, but what gets unwrapped depends entirely on the condition of the hands that open it. And the condition of the hands, in this metaphor, is the condition of the mind that receives, the whole brain synchronized state, the receiver running at its designed capacity. Because what God is sending through this window is not a gentle nudge. It is a full and specific and layered communication that requires the full version of your receiving capacity to hold it the way it was meant to be held. And that is exactly why you are here, not just to hear a word, to understand what has been limiting the reception, and to have that limitation addressed before the window closes. Before June 25 becomes June 26, and this specific window becomes a past thing instead of a present one. Let me go back to the formation season for a moment, because I want to give you something to hold about that season that changes what it means. The formation season of the chosen one is not the absence of movement. It is the invisible movement. It is the work that happens underneath the surface before anything appears above it. A seed does not look like it is doing anything for the entire length of the time between planting and emergence. But the work is happening. All of it. The root system forming, the internal structure being built, the capacity to hold the weight of what is about to break the surface. You have been in the root formation season. And what that means is that the emergence, when it comes, does not collapse. It stands, because the underground work is done, and in these 3 days, the emergence begins. I have seen this pattern too many times to call it coincidence. The chosen one, who has been in the longest and hardest formation season, is also the one whose emergence, when it comes, is the most disruptive in the best sense of that word. The most disruptive to the limitations that have been pressing them. The most disruptive to the patterns that have been repeating. The most disruptive to the expectations of people around them who were beginning to form permanent opinions about what the chosen one was capable of. The longer the root, the higher the tree. And your root has been forming for a long time. I want to tell you what the enemy has been doing during this window. Not to give the enemy too much attention, but to name it so you can see it clearly and stop allowing it to operate without being called by its name. The enemy has known about these dates. God did not announce them into a vacuum. He announced them into a realm where forces exist that are opposed to the advancement of the chosen one. And those forces have spent time in the weeks leading up to June 23, creating the conditions that would make the chosen one most likely to miss the window. Busyness that felt urgent but was not. Discouragement that arrived out of proportion to its cause. A heaviness in the spirit that made staying in prayer feel harder than usual. Doubts that came packaged as wisdom. These were not random. They were targeted. They were timed. And the chosen one, who recognizes the pattern, can see that the intensity of the spiritual resistance was directly proportional to the significance of what is on the other side of the window. You are not under attack because you are losing. You are under attack because you are about to win. The enemy does not assign this level of interference to people who are not a threat. Let me add to the recognition signs because I want you to see yourself in this completely before we go further. There is a 6th sign I want to give you, not because I was counting wrong earlier, but because this one belongs here, at this part of the message, for a reason. The 6th sign of the chosen one in this season is that you have been feeling an urgency you cannot explain. Not anxiety exactly, an urgency. A sense that something is time-sensitive in a way that ordinary days are not time-sensitive. A sense that the window is open now and will not be open in the same way later. You have probably felt this urgency building in recent days without knowing exactly what it was pointed toward. Without knowing that these specific dates were the source of the pressure. Now you know, and the urgency was not your imagination, it was your spirit detecting what your mind had not yet been informed of. That is the calibration I mentioned earlier, and it has been trying to tell you something all along. There is a 7th sign. You have a specific person or a specific group of people you feel destined to impact, not in a general way, in a specific way. You have a vision of what that impact looks like. Incomplete maybe, but specific enough to be real. And the impact you feel called toward is larger than what your current capacity would support. Not because the calling is too big, but because the receiver has been limited. What you are carrying is the right size for who God made you to be. But receiving the full version of who God made you to be requires the full version of the receiver that God built you with. And that is exactly what these 3 days are about. Now, I want to walk you through what happens to the chosen one at the level of identity when the appointment season arrives and they are not fully ready to receive. Because this is the cost I mentioned at the beginning, and I want to be specific about it. When God opens a window and the receiver is operating below capacity, one of 3 things happens. The first is partial reception. You receive something, but not the full thing. The partial something is real, and it helps, but it does not carry the full weight of the breakthrough that was available. You move forward, but not as far as the window made possible. The second thing that happens is delayed recognition. You receive the instruction, but the fog in the receiver delays the clarity by days or weeks. By the time the instruction is fully processed, the window has closed and the optimal moment for acting on it has passed. The third thing, and this is the one I want to be most direct about, is a false confirmation. The fog creates a signal that feels like peace but is actually just the settling of the confusion. The chosen one mistakes the quieting of the confusion for the arrival of the confirmation and does not pursue what they should pursue because everything feels okay again. Everything is not okay. It is just foggy enough to seem okay. These three patterns have cost the chosen one, perhaps you specifically, more than you realize. Not because you failed, because the receiver was not ready. And the receiver being not ready is not a permanent state. It is an addressable state. And addressing it is exactly what this window is designed for. The specific bitter root of appointment deafness, the hidden mechanism underneath the symptom, is this. When the two hemispheres of the brain are not synchronized, the kind of knowing that arrives through the right hemisphere, the intuitive knowing, the pattern recognition, the spiritual sensitivity, cannot be fully processed by the left hemisphere, the language and logic hemisphere, and integrated into actionable clarity. You feel the signal. You receive something that arrives in the intuitive register. But by the time it reaches the part of your mind that can do something with it, it has been reduced, filtered, thinned, not because the signal was weak, because the bridge between the two hemispheres was operating below its designed capacity. The whole brain's synchronized state is the state in which the bridge is fully open, in which what arrives intuitively passes immediately to the analytical, and what is understood analytically connects immediately to the intuitive. That is what the designed mind looks like. That is what your mind looked like as a child, before the accumulated weight of modern living narrowed the bridge, and that is what can be restored, not over years of discipline, not through a complete lifestyle overhaul, through a specific neurological restoration that was developed in a laboratory in New York, and I will tell you about it in full later in this message. For now, take this with you into the next part of what I want to share. The reason divine appointments have cost you less than they should have is not a faith problem. It is a receiver problem. And the receiver has a specific address. And that address has a specific solution. The years you have called lost, the seasons you have wondered whether you spent in the wrong direction, the attempts you made that did not produce the results the faith they required should have produced, those years were not wasted. But they were lived through a receiver that was operating below the design. What you accomplished through that receiver is remarkable. Imagine, just for a moment, what becomes possible when the receiver is fully restored, when the bridge between the two hemispheres is open the way it was designed to be open. When what God sends through this prophetic window lands in you at full depth, when the instruction that has been waiting at the threshold of your mind finally passes through into full clarity. That is not a theoretical future. That is the designed present. That is what June 23, June 24, June 25 are pointing toward. Not the end of the waiting, the beginning of the receiving. At a depth that the receiver you have been working with was not capable of until now. There is something I said near the beginning of this message that I want to return to now. I asked you to hold a question about what happens when the brain operates the way it was designed to operate, about what was taken from you at the neural level and how specifically it can be returned. The answer to that question is where this part of the message is going. And everything that has come before this moment was the context that makes the answer land the way it needs to land. Before I get there, I want to give you something that I believe will change how you see the last several years of your life. Because the formation season of the Chosen One contains a specific wound that is almost never named directly, and if I do not name it before we continue, it will keep operating underneath everything else we discuss. The wound is this: you are sensitive, profoundly sensitive. Not in the way the word is used as a dismissal, in the way the word describes a designed function. You were built with a spiritual sensitivity that allows you to perceive things that others cannot perceive, to feel the weight of things before they fully arrive, to know the emotional state of rooms, of people, of seasons, to carry in your body a kind of weather report about the unseen that most people around you simply do not have access to. And this sensitivity, which is a gift, which is one of the central features of the Chosen One calling, has become a burden. Not because you were designed wrong, because the sensitivity is receiving without the processing capacity that was designed to accompany it. Imagine a radio antenna that is calibrated to receive signals from very far away. A high-gain antenna. That antenna, if connected to a properly functioning receiver, would translate those distant signals into clear transmission. If the receiver has a malfunction, the same high-gain antenna produces static. Not because the antenna is broken, because the receiver cannot process what the antenna is capturing. You are the antenna. The sensitivity has not been broken. The receiver has not been operating at the capacity needed to process what the sensitivity is picking up. And the result is that what should be a gift, what should be one of the primary instruments of your calling, has been producing overwhelm instead of clarity, static instead of signal, feelings you cannot name instead of knowing you can act on. This is the second breakthrough I want to give you. Not emotional burden, receiver malfunction. The sensitivity is not the problem. The processing gap is the problem. And processing gap has a specific and addressable cause, which I will describe before this message ends. But I want you to stay with this for a moment, because reframing your sensitivity from a wound to an unprocessed gift changes the entire emotional landscape of the last several years. Every time you felt too much and did not know what to do with what you felt, you were not broken. You were running high-gain signal through an under-synchronized receiver. Every time the feelings produced no actionable clarity, that was not a spiritual failure. That was a processing architecture problem. And the Chosen One who understands this stops apologizing for the sensitivity and starts addressing the architecture. You are not too sensitive. You are correctly calibrated for your assignment. The calibration just needs a receiver that matches it. Now let me give you the third breakthrough, because we have been talking about what blocks reception, but there is a deeper question underneath that. The question is, why does God call the Chosen One to a level of sensitivity that creates this kind of pain during the formation season? Why would the gift produce burden before it produces fruit? The answer is rooted in the nature of what the Chosen One is called to do. The mission of the Chosen One is not to live a comfortable life. It is to carry something forward, to break patterns that have been running in families and communities and generations, to receive divine instruction at a depth that most people cannot access, and translate that instruction into impact that most people cannot produce. To be a channel for what God is doing, that requires a channel calibrated beyond what ordinary living produces. And the calibration process, the formation season, is the process of the antenna being tuned, of the sensitivity being developed, of the receiver being built. The tragedy is that most of the formation process happens before the receiver is fixed. Most of the calibration of the antenna happens while the receiver is still under construction. So you spend years developing the capacity to receive while simultaneously being unable to fully receive because the receiver is not yet aligned with the antenna. And the gap between the two is where the suffering of the formation season lives. This is what Joseph knew in the pit. This is what Elijah knew under the juniper tree. The calling was real, the anointing was real, the assignment was real, but the receiver had not yet been brought into alignment with the antenna. And the gap between those two things is always painful. Let me tell you the story of Joseph the way it was actually structured. Because the story of Joseph is the story of the chosen one in long-form formation, Joseph was called. He received the dream. He saw the vision. The antenna was perfectly calibrated. He received the divine instruction clearly enough to describe it in full. And then the gap opened. The pit, the slavery, the house of Potiphar, the prison. Year after year after year of circumstances that looked like the calling was being destroyed instead of built. But here is what was actually happening in the pit. Joseph was not being abandoned. Joseph was being aligned. The receiver was being brought into synchronization with the antenna. Because the vision he had received as a teenager could not have been carried by a teenage receiver, the depth of the assignment, the governing of Egypt, the saving of nations, required a receiver that was calibrated at the level of the assignment. And every year in the pit was a year of receiver alignment, not punishment, preparation for reception at scale. The moment Joseph stood before Pharaoh, something had been completed. Not just the circumstances finally changing, the receiver finally matching the antenna, and when they matched, the download was immediate. The interpretation of the dream came with full clarity. The plan for Egypt came with strategic precision. The divine instruction landed at full depth because the receiver was finally synchronized with the signal that had been trying to arrive since the first dream. You have been in the pit, and the pit is ending. There is a specific pattern I want you to see in the story of Elijah. After his greatest spiritual victory on Mount Carmel, Elijah collapsed under a juniper tree and told God he had had enough. And what did God send? Not a stronger commission, not a reprimand, not a word about the calling. God sent rest and food. And after the rest and the food, God came to him, not in the earthquake, not in the fire, in the still small voice. The voice that requires a quiet receiver. There is a level of divine communication that you have been designed to access, but that requires the receiver to be quiet enough and synchronized enough to hear it, not loud enough, not busy enough. The still small voice does not break through noise. It requires a receiver that is tuned, and Elijah, in his exhaustion, could not access that level of communication until the rest had done what it was designed to do, until the receiver was restored enough for the still small voice to land. What God is doing for you in this window is not just sending a louder message. He is restoring the receiver. He is doing what he did for Elijah in the desert, preparing the conditions in which the still small voice can land at full depth. And these 3 days are the window in which that restoration is available. Now let me name the 3 identity archetypes of the chosen one that are most relevant to this moment. Because understanding which archetype you carry is not an exercise in self-categorization. It is a map for understanding where your specific receiver malfunction is most acute and where the restoration will produce the most immediate and recognizable results. The first archetype is the seer. The seer is the chosen one whose primary gift is prophetic perception, who receives revelation, dreams, words of knowledge, patterns in the spirit, who feels most intensely the gap between the antenna and the receiver. The greatest pain of the seer is receiving something clearly and then losing the clarity before they can act on it. The impression arrives, the knowing is real, and then, between the moment of receiving and the moment of acting, something thins it. The full picture becomes a partial picture, and the seer is left holding a fragment of what was sent. If that is you, hold that feeling for a moment. The second archetype is the cycle breaker. This is the chosen one who carries the assignment of ending what has been running in their family line. The patterns, the cycles, the limitations that have passed from generation to generation. The cycle breaker is often the first person in their lineage to believe that things can be different, the first to stand at the boundary between what was and what is possible. The receiver malfunction for the cycle breaker shows up as the inability to access the full download of what breaking the cycle actually requires. The pattern is visible, the intention is genuine, but the precision of the divine instruction needed to execute the break is not arriving at the depth it needs to arrive. The third archetype is the wounded healer. This is the chosen one whose calling is born directly from their deepest wound, who is being sent to people who are experiencing what the wounded healer has already survived, whose authority comes not from credentials, but from the reality of having been in the same darkness and having found the way through. The receiver malfunction for the wounded healer shows up as compassion without direction, as the ability to feel deeply what others need without the clarity of what to do with what is felt. You may carry more than one of these archetypes. Most chosen ones do. But I want you to notice which one resonates most, because the restoration I am pointing toward addresses all three at once. When the receiver is synchronized, the seer holds clarity. The cycle breaker receives precision. The wounded healer finds direction. The gift becomes functional instead of burdensome. The calling becomes operable instead of theoretical. And the window for that restoration is these 3 days. What I am about to show you is going to connect something you have felt in your own experience with something discovered in a research laboratory. And that connection is going to explain something about your life that nothing else has quite explained before. Stay with me as we go into this next part together. Here is what you now know that you did not know at the beginning of this message. First, that the gap between your faith and your results is not a faith problem, it is a receiver problem. Second, that the sensitivity you carry is not a wound but an unprocessed gift. The antenna is right, the receiver needs alignment. Third, that the formation season you have been in is not evidence of abandonment, it is evidence of the scale of what is being prepared. The longer the formation, the deeper the roots, the higher the emergence. Fourth, that these 3 days, June 23, June 24, June 25, are a prophetic window in the divine calendar that God announced specifically because something specific is available through it. And fifth, that the identity archetypes you carry, whether seer or cycle breaker or wounded healer, each describe a specific way the receiver alignment will produce immediate and recognizable change once it is restored. The who in all of this is you, the chosen one who has been formed and calibrated and is now arriving at the window of the appointed time. And here is what I want to tell you now about that alignment, because the alignment of the receiver is not something you achieve through more effort. That is the trap that has kept many chosen ones stuck for years. They believe the receiver gets aligned through more prayer, more fasting, more discipline, more spiritual practice. And those things are good, but they address the antenna, not the receiver. The receiver has a specific physiological component that spiritual practice alone cannot directly address, because the receiver is the brain, the synchronization of the two hemispheres. The whole brain activation state that was the default in childhood and has been progressively disrupted by the way modern life is structured. The prayer does not become less important. The discipline does not become less important. They become more effective. Because when the receiver is synchronized, the spiritual practice produces what it was always designed to produce. The antenna and the receiver working together the way they were designed to work together, the signal arriving at full depth, the divine instruction landing with the clarity and precision that the formation season was always supposed to produce. A small group of neuroscientists, led by a neurologist in New York who spent 20 years studying this specific question, found what makes this restoration possible. They found it in a research laboratory. They built it into something you can access in 8 minutes a day, and I am going to tell you exactly what it is right now. In 1981, something was proven in a research laboratory that most people sitting in spiritual communities have never been told about. Not because the discovery contradicts what is sacred, because it came from a direction most of us are not watching. Dr. Roger Sperry received the Nobel Prize for Medicine and Physiology that year for research into the way the two hemispheres of the human brain are designed. His research demonstrated that the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere were not designed to operate independently. They were designed to operate as a synchronized unit. In that synchronized state, something happens in the human mind that Sperry documented and that researchers after him have continued to study. It is called whole brain activation, the state in which both hemispheres fire together in synchronized harmony. In whole brain activation, the analytical capacity of the left hemisphere and the intuitive capacity of the right hemisphere operate simultaneously. The logical and the creative, the structured and the spontaneous, the language-based and the pattern-based, firing together, producing a state of mental capacity that is qualitatively different from the one hemisphere at a time operation that most adults spend most of their lives in. This is the state children operate in. Research shows that 98% of children between the ages of 3 and 5 score at the creative genius level on tests that measure whole brain activation. 98%. Not gifted children, average children. Because the default operating state for the human brain before modern life begins its disruption is whole brain activation. The full synchronization of both hemispheres, the state of maximum cognitive and intuitive capacity firing simultaneously. By adulthood, fewer than 1 in 1,000 people maintain this state consistently. The synchronized state does not disappear. It becomes disrupted, not through any spiritual failing, through the accumulated weight of stress, fragmented attention, a pace of living that the human brain was never engineered for, and an educational and professional environment that heavily rewards left hemisphere processing and progressively neglects right hemisphere development. The synchronization is disrupted at the physiological level, not permanently disrupted. And the chosen one, who was born with high-gain spiritual sensitivity, whose antenna was calibrated for more than ordinary reception, has been living through this disruption, has been running the most powerful antenna through the most disrupted receiver, has been feeling the weight of a calling that requires whole brain synchronization while operating in a state where the bridge between the hemispheres is operating below its designed capacity. A woman from California described what this felt like before she found the restoration. She had tried everything: prayer, journaling, meditation, every practice her community offered. And she kept arriving at the same experience. She believed the words. She could not feel the reality behind them, not in her body, not in the lived texture of her days. After 10 days of what I am about to describe, something cleared. A channel that had been blocked was suddenly open, not because she tried harder, because the receiver had been repaired. A man from Texas described something similar. Someone who had spent years holding things together for everyone around him, while his own interior life became thin and distant. He said prayer had started to feel like talking into a wall. The frequency was right, but the receiver was off. 2 weeks later, he woke up and described his mind as running on all of what it was supposed to run on. The fog that had been so consistent, he stopped registering it as fog was gone. And what he was able to receive in his prayer time after that restoration changed the direction of his family. What Dr. Daniel Barone discovered is the reason why that happened, and it goes all the way back to something proven in 1981, something that explains, at the scientific level, exactly what the fog was, where it came from, and what specifically was required to clear it. A team of neuroscientists led by Dr. Daniel Barone in New York spent years doing the following. They took over an hour of clinical neural sync technology, the kind of whole brain activation protocol used in specialized medical settings, and through an intensive compression and refinement process, they turned it into an 8-minute targeted auditory sequence. 8 minutes a day, headphones, eyes closed. That is the entirety of the physical requirement. They call it the genius switch. It is not a brainwave product, not a meditation app, not a sound frequency designed to put you in a particular mood. It is a targeted auditory sequence, specifically engineered, based on the Nobel Prize research of Dr. Roger Sperry, to reconnect the two hemispheres and restore the whole brain activation that was the default state in childhood, the state in which the antenna and the receiver are finally, fully synchronized. This is not for everyone. It is for the chosen one, who understands that God prepared not only the promise, but the mind that must walk into it. The person who has been sincere for years, who has done the work, who has felt the call clearly and kept returning to it, even when the evidence was not cooperating, and who is willing to stop treating the fog as a character flaw and start treating it as something that has a specific address. Most people who hear about this will move on. They have accepted the reduced version of their mind as permanent. You are still here. You have been listening for this long. That is not coincidence. That is the specific kind of persistence that belongs to the person this was built for. Dr. Barone is a neurologist based in New York City. His team took what required an hour of clinical-grade protocol in a specialized setting and compressed it, through years of refinement, into 8 minutes of targeted auditory sequence that you can use at home. The mechanism is not sound waves. Dr. Barone addressed this directly because many chosen ones have tried binaural beats and brainwave products and found them underwhelming. Those products address only a fraction of the picture. Sound waves alone are incomplete. What he built targets hemisphere synchronization at the whole brain level using a multi-layer protocol developed from years of clinical work. A different mechanism, a different category of result. You do not need to meditate. You do not need to repeat anything. You do not need to spend an hour setting up conditions. You put on headphones, you close your eyes, you listen for 8 minutes, and the sequence does the work of synchronization beneath your awareness. Not because you believe hard enough, because the mechanism is working the way it was engineered to work. You can do this alongside prayer, alongside your regular spiritual practice, alongside whatever you are already doing. But you do not need to add anything complicated to receive what the genius switch restores. Here is what this costs. Dr. Barone and colleagues at the lab describe this as something they would have valued even at $500. In-person neurofeedback, the clinical version of what this replaces, runs $300 per hour. A home neurofeedback machine is $7,000, not $500. Not $200, not $100. The team released it at $49. And today, on this page only, there is an additional $10 off. $39. That is what the restoration of your receiving capacity costs on this specific day, in this specific window. And with that $39, 4 additional resources come with it. A guided visualization created by one of the top-rated creators on the Calm app, walks you through seeing your life open in the 4 areas that matter most to the chosen one, in the expression season: financial, relational, physical, and purposeful. A grocery guide identifies the 10 most common foods that are actively suppressing cognitive function and the practical alternatives that protect whole brain function instead. A book over 100 years old that forms the root of most modern thinking about the relationship between a synchronized mind and material alignment, free when you check out. And a visual summary of the 5 daily habits most associated with maintaining the whole brain activation state once it is restored. So the restoration does not end when the 8 minutes end. This is backed by an unconditional money-back guarantee. Listen once, listen 80 times. If it does not do what it has done for 18,000 people whose lives have been documented in the feedback, every dollar is returned. No conditions, no questions. Not because Dr. Barone is not confident in what he built, because a guarantee like this is what confident people offer. The $39 price is not permanent. The window of June 23 through June 25 does not wait. Neither does this price. The team has communicated that the price will increase, and what God has arranged for these specific days carries a specific momentum that belongs to these specific days. If your spirit resonates with what has been described, the link in the description below and in the pinned comment points to where Dr. Barone and his team made it available, not anywhere else. You can read everything on their page before making any decision. Every detail is laid out clearly. The tool does not replace God. The tool does not replace obedience. It does not surrender for you. It does not close the door for you. What God is doing in you is not conditional on any tool, but a tool that restores the receiver, gives what God is doing more of what it was designed to land in. The prayer is still yours. The calling is still yours. The formation is still yours. The tool simply restores the part of you that receives the return on all of that investment at the depth it was designed to be received. And for the chosen one who felt something stir when the mind was mentioned earlier in this message, that door is still open in the description below. It is a small step, but small steps taken from a clear mind have changed entire seasons. Now, let me tell you what you are about to receive in the remainder of this message, because we have addressed the receiver. But there is still the question of what God has actually prepared for the chosen one who arrives at this window with the receiver restored. What is waiting on the other side of the prophetic window of June 23, June 24, June 25? And the answer to that question is where the deepest part of what I want to give you lives. Type "Restoration is mine" in the comments if your spirit just confirmed what was described. The chosen one who declares restoration in this moment is not just commenting, they are sealing in words what the Spirit has already confirmed in knowing. Type it now. Now let me go deeper into what God has actually arranged for the chosen one in this prophetic window, because the product of restoring the receiver is not just clearer thinking, it is the full arrival of what the formation season was always building toward. And I want to walk you through what that arrival looks like in the specific areas of your life that matter most. But before I do that, I want to give you a third breakthrough, because there is a pattern in the life of the chosen one that has been producing confusion, and I want to bring it into the light so it stops operating below awareness. The pattern is this. You have had moments of genuine breakthrough, moments where something opened, where clarity arrived, where you knew with certainty what you were supposed to do or be or say or go toward. And then, in the days that followed, the clarity faded, not all at once, gradually, like a fire that was real and bright and warm. And then, over days, became embers, and then ash. And you were left with the memory of the breakthrough, but not its full impact, with the knowledge that something happened, but not the ability to sustain what it produced. You have told yourself this is just the nature of spiritual experience, that the mountaintop does not last, that you go back down into the valley and carry what you can. That is partially true. But there is another part that is not spiritual in nature. There is a physiological reason that the breakthrough experience does not always translate into sustained breakthrough living, and it comes back to the receiver. A moment of genuine spiritual breakthrough can temporarily override the synchronization deficit. In moments of intense spiritual engagement, both hemispheres can fire together even when the baseline synchronization is disrupted. This is why the breakthrough feels so clear in the moment. Both hemispheres are firing. The antenna and the receiver are temporarily aligned. The signal comes through at full depth. You feel what it feels like to be fully receiving. And then the moment passes. The baseline returns. The synchronization falls back below the threshold. And the insight, which was received at full depth in the moment, now has to be processed by a receiver operating below that threshold. And in that processing, it gets reduced. The full depth experience of the breakthrough becomes a partial depth retention of the breakthrough. Not because the breakthrough was not real, because the receiver that is supposed to hold it long-term is operating below the capacity needed to hold it at the depth it was received. We call this the frequency gap. The distance between the depth at which the chosen one receives in the high moments and the depth at which the receiver holds in the ordinary moments. And every chosen one who has experienced multiple moments of genuine spiritual clarity, followed by return to baseline confusion, knows this gap intimately. They just did not have a name for it until now. The frequency gap explains why the chosen one can have a prayer time that changes everything and then wake up 2 days later feeling like it never happened. It explains why the spiritual experience does not always produce the spiritual results. It explains why more prayer does not always produce more clarity, because prayer fills the antenna, but the antenna is not the problem. The receiver that holds what prayer produces is the problem. And filling an antenna attached to a compromised receiver just means more signal arriving at a processing architecture that cannot hold it at full depth. Once the receiver is restored to full synchronization, the frequency gap closes. The ordinary moments begin to hold what only the extraordinary moments used to hold. The prayer time on a Tuesday morning produces and retains what previously only happened on the mountain top. The gap between the high moments and the everyday moments narrows to almost nothing, because the receiver is finally holding at full depth what the antenna has always been capable of receiving. This is why what I described earlier in this message matters on these specific days, because June 23, June 24, June 25 are prophetic windows. But the depth at which you receive what God sends through a prophetic window is determined by the condition of the receiver in the moment the window opens. The window does not determine the depth, the receiver determines the depth. And you are hearing this in advance of what God is doing in these days, specifically so that you have the opportunity to address the receiver before the full force of the prophetic window arrives. Think about the difference between a photograph taken through clean glass and a photograph taken through fogged glass. The scene being photographed is identical. The light is identical. The angle is identical. What is different is the medium through which the image passes. The fogged glass does not make the scene less real. It makes the image you receive of the scene less clear. Restoring the receiver is cleaning the glass. Same window, same divine provision. same God sending the same arrangement through the same prophetic moment, but received at a depth that the cleaned glass makes possible in a way the fogged glass never could. Now, I want to speak to something very specific, because there may be a thought forming in you right now, a thought that has shown up before in moments like this one. A thought that says, I have heard about breakthroughs before, and they came to something at the time, and then life went back to normal. If you are thinking that right now, I want to tell you directly, that thought is the most understandable thought in the world for a person with your history. And the fact that you are still here, still listening, even with that thought present, is not evidence of naivety. It is evidence of a faith that has survived being tested more times than it should have had to be tested. But I also want to tell you what is different this time, because something is different. And the difference is not the message. The difference is the mechanism. Every previous breakthrough you experienced was a breakthrough through the frequency gap, real but partial, real but not sustained. What I am describing is the closing of the gap itself, not another breakthrough through the fog, the removal of the fog, not another moment of clarity. The restoration of the clarity as your baseline. These are categorically different things. And the chosen one, who understands the difference, stops waiting for the next mountaintop experience and starts addressing the architecture that determines the quality of every experience. You are not too old for this. You are not too far along in the pattern for this to work. The research that Dr. Barone built this from documented restoration of whole brain synchronization in adults across a wide range of ages. The synchronization that was present in childhood is not permanently gone, it is disrupted. And disruption is reversible, not with effort, with the right mechanism applied correctly for 8 minutes a day. I want to give you something practical now, something you can carry from this message even before you act on what was described, because the chosen one deserves not just a word about a solution but a tool for the journey while the solution is working. The first tool is what I am going to call appointment positioning. When you feel a divine window approaching, and the window of June 23 through June 25 is one of them, there is a specific practice that prepares the receiver for maximum reception even before the full restoration is complete. The practice is this. In the 24 hours before a known prophetic window, you reduce the inputs that fragment the synchronization. Not through extreme fasting or isolation, through 3 specific reductions. You reduce the first thing you reach for in the morning. Most chosen ones reach for a device within the first 3 minutes of waking. Those 3 minutes are the window in which the synchronization from sleep carries over into wakefulness. Protecting those 3 minutes is the single highest return synchronization investment you can make for free. You reduce your exposure to content that creates emotional static, not all content. Specifically, content that produces the category of emotional response that involves comparison or judgment of your own life against another is life. That category of content is uniquely disruptive to the right hemisphere, which is the intuitive hemisphere, which is the receptor for the kind of divine instruction most likely to arrive through a prophetic window. And you increase the amount of time you spend in what I will call receiving posture. Not active prayer necessarily. The posture of listening, eyes closed, breathing slow. The antenna tilted toward what God is saying rather than what you are saying. The receiver open. The first thing the restored receiver notices is not something new. It is the depth at which familiar things land. The familiar prayer, the familiar scripture, the familiar knowing. Landing at a depth you had not accessed since the synchronization was whole. This is appointment positioning. Practice it in these 3 days. And if you take the additional step I described, the step that takes 8 minutes a day and addresses the synchronization architecture directly, the combination of appointment positioning and the neurological restoration will produce something in these days that the formation season has been preparing you to receive for longer than you may realize. Type Kairos time in the comments right now if you are declaring that you are stepping out of the slow accumulation of chronological time and into the divine timing of these appointed days. Kairos is the Greek word for the right moment, the opportune moment, the moment appointed by God rather than measured by the clock. And the chosen one who is listening on one of these 3 dates is in a Kairos moment right now. Declare it. Let me tell you what this looks like 6 months from now for the chosen one who receives what is available in this window. And I want to be specific because vague promises are not what you need. You have heard vague promises. What you need is a specific picture you can hold. 6 months from now, you wake up on a morning that would have looked ordinary from the outside. Nothing dramatic has happened. No major life circumstance has changed overnight. But something is different in the interior. The first thought you have upon waking is not anxiety. It is not the review of everything that has not happened yet. It is a question, a genuine question. What is mine to do today? And when you ask that question, something answers, not from outside, from inside, from the level of the synchronized receiver processing the signal that the antenna has been calibrated to receive for years. You know what you are supposed to do today. Not everything about the future, what today holds. The next step, the right direction, the specific thing that this specific day is asking of you. And you act on it with a clarity you had not experienced outside of mountaintop moments since you were a child. Because the receiver is holding what the antenna receives at the depth it was designed to hold it. And that is not every day being a mountaintop. That is every day having access to what the mountaintop used to be the only place you could reach. The clarity that used to require a retreat to access is available in your kitchen on a Tuesday. The knowing that used to require a 40-day fast is present in your 30 seconds of closing your eyes before responding to an email. Not because you became more spiritual, because the receiver was restored to the capacity God built into it in the first place. This is not the life of a different kind of person. This is the life of the version of you that God built the calling for. The version that has been forming in the formation season. The version that June 23, June 24, June 25 were marked to release. You are not waiting to become that person. You already are that person. You are just waiting for the receiver to catch up with who you already are, in the spirit. And for the chosen one whose spirit confirmed something when the mind was described in this message, the path to that restoration is still open in the description below. The resource from Dr. Barone and his team remains there for those whose spirit said yes. What follows from here belongs to something deeper still. I want to address something directly now, because there is a version of this message that would have stopped where it stopped earlier, with the practical tool and the restoration and the vision of 6 months from now. And that version of this message would have been incomplete, because there is a question underneath all of what we have discussed, that the chosen one is always asking, whether in words or not. And the question is this: why me? Why would God mark specific dates on the calendar for something related to me specifically? Why would the divine timing of the universe include an appointment that has my name on it? That question deserves an answer, and the answer is not that you are special in a way that others are not. The answer is that you have been specifically formed for a specific assignment, that the formation season was not generic spiritual development. It was targeted preparation for a targeted outcome that God has been building toward, that the sensitivity you carry and the calling you feel and the appointments that God is opening in these days are not cosmic accident. They are the deliberate architecture of a God who plans and prepares and positions his chosen ones at specific moments for specific reasons. You are not here because you randomly found a piece of content. You are here because God directed your attention to a message that carries a word for you specifically, in a window that has been marked for you specifically, for an appointment that has your name on it specifically. The cost of missing it is real. The provision available through it is real. And the decision of what to do with what you have heard is yours. But there is one more thing that has been trying to prevent you from receiving this, and I want to name it before we go into the deepest part of this message, because the interference I described at the beginning of this message is not passive. It does not simply create obstacles to receiving the message. It also creates an internal argument against acting on what the message has said. The argument sounds like wisdom. It sounds like discernment. It says, be careful, test everything, do not be impulsive, give it time. All of those things are genuinely good advice in the right context. But the enemy has been using wisdom language to create inaction at divine appointment moments throughout the life of the chosen one. Every time a window has opened and the divine arrangement has been visible, something has offered a reason that sounded wise to wait until tomorrow. And tomorrow became next week, and next week became the window closing. I am not saying wisdom is wrong. I am saying that the specific form of hesitation that shows up at divine appointment moments, dressed in the language of wisdom and patience and discernment, is something the enemy has used against you before. And recognizing it does not mean throwing away wisdom. It means having the discernment to know when what sounds like wisdom is actually a strategy to make you miss an appointment. The chosen one who acts from a place of spirit-led certainty during a prophetic window is not being rash. They are being decisive. And decisiveness at the right moment is one of the rarest and most powerful gifts of the formed chosen one. Let me tell you about a pattern I have observed in the chosen one during the formation season that changes the way they experience obstacles. Because the chosen one tends to interpret obstacles in one of two ways, and one of those interpretations is accurate and one is not. The first interpretation is that the obstacle is evidence of the wrong path, that if God was truly behind the direction, the path would be clearer, the doors would open more easily, the resistance would be lower. This interpretation feels like wisdom. It feels like discernment, but it is not accurate for the chosen one. For the chosen one specifically, the opposite pattern is true. The formation season obstacle is almost never evidence of the wrong path. It is almost always evidence of the right one. The enemy does not assign serious resistance to directions that pose no threat. The second interpretation is that the obstacle is a test, not a test of whether you are strong enough to push through, but a test of whether you understand the nature of the obstacle clearly enough to address it correctly. Because the solution to the obstacle is always available, the question is always whether the chosen one is operating with enough clarity to see the solution clearly enough to act on it. And that question takes us back to the receiver. The clarity that is needed to navigate the formation season obstacle is the clarity of the synchronized receiver. The obstacle is real. The path through is real. But the path through requires seeing the obstacle at a resolution that the partially synchronized receiver often cannot fully access. This is the fourth breakthrough I want you to hold. The obstacles of the formation season are not tests of your strength. They are tests of your clarity. And clarity is not a spiritual achievement. It is a neurological condition. When the receiver is synchronized, the clarity arrives that the obstacle requires. The path through becomes visible. The instruction for the specific situation lands with the precision the situation demands. Strength alone does not navigate the formation season. Clarity does. and you have been trying to navigate with strength because clarity was not fully available. That changes now. I want to give you the fourth identity archetype that belongs to this moment. Because there is a type of chosen one that I have not mentioned yet, and this type is particularly relevant to the window of June 23 through June 25. The carrier. This is the chosen one, who is not yet in their full assignment, who is still in the preparation phase, who has been holding something sacred, a calling, a word from God, a vision, a sense of purpose, for years without the full expression of it yet emerging. The carrier carries what has not yet been born. And the weight of carrying is immense because what they are carrying requires the full version of them to deliver, and the full version requires the receiver to be synchronized, and the synchronization has been the missing piece. The carrier is the chosen one who has been pregnant with something for too long, not because they did not do everything right, because the delivery requires conditions that the enemy has been disrupting. And the window of these 3 days is a window for the delivery to begin, for the carrier to receive the specific instruction and activation that allows what has been carried to finally be brought forth. If you are the carrier, what is coming in these days is not more preparation. It is the end of the carrying season and the beginning of the bringing forth season. And the receiver being restored is the final condition that makes the bringing forth possible at the scale that what you have been carrying was always meant to operate at. Let me speak now about something that the chosen one often misinterprets about their own history. There is a way of reading the past that produces shame, that looks at the years of the formation season and sees evidence of failure, sees the gap between the calling and the current reality as a verdict on the worth and capacity and faithfulness of the chosen one. I have seen this shame operating in the chosen one as a secondary wound, added on top of the primary wound of the frequency gap, compounding the difficulty of the formation season. I want to reread the past for you. Every year you spent in the formation season was a year of root development. Every moment of what felt like delay was a moment of structural integrity being built. Every time you chose to return to the calling, even when the evidence was not cooperating, was a moment of choosing the accuracy of the spirit over the apparent evidence of the circumstances. That is not failure. That is one of the highest acts of spiritual intelligence available to a human being. The willingness to hold the knowing in the face of contrary evidence and keep returning to it. The past has not been wasted. It has been productive, not in the way you expected it to be productive, in the way God knew it needed to be productive. And what has been produced in the invisible years is about to become visible in a way that will surprise even you. Now, let me give you the fifth breakthrough, because we have been talking about the receiver and the restoration and the window. But there is an enemy strategy that I have not named yet, and it is the most sophisticated strategy the enemy deploys against the chosen one. It is the strategy of substitution. Here is how it works. The enemy cannot remove the calling. The calling is assigned and sealed. What the enemy can do is create a substitute for the calling that feels real enough to occupy the attention and energy of the chosen one without ever actually delivering the fruit of the real calling. The substitution looks almost identical to the real thing. It carries the same emotional weight. It produces the same sense of purpose and meaning, but it never produces the breakthrough results. It never creates the impact the real calling would create. And it keeps the chosen one busy enough that they never stop long enough to notice that the substitute and the real thing are producing different fruit. The substitute can be a ministry that feels like the calling but is not quite it. A relationship that feels like the divine appointment but keeps circling without arriving. A project that feels like the mission but has been producing effort without breakthrough for years. Not all of these are substitutes, but some of them are. And the chosen one with a synchronized receiver can tell the difference in a way that the chosen one with a compromised receiver cannot, because the full synchronization of the two hemispheres is what allows the intuitive knowing of the right hemisphere and the analytical evaluation of the left hemisphere to work together in the assessment of direction. When they are synchronized, the chosen one feels both the resonance and the alignment. They feel it in the spirit, and they can also evaluate it clearly with the mind. When they are not synchronized, they feel the resonance but cannot fully evaluate the alignment. And the enemy uses this gap to slip in the substitution where the real thing should be. This is the fifth breakthrough. The synchronized receiver is not just for receiving what God sends, it is for discerning what the enemy substitutes. The clarity of whole brain activation gives you the ability to tell the real calling from the counterfeit at a resolution that the partially synchronized mind cannot access. And what is coming toward you in this prophetic window, what God has arranged in these 3 days, includes the clarity to see what has been real and what has been a substitution, includes the discernment to let go of what has been occupying the space the real calling was supposed to occupy, and includes the restoration of the receiver that makes the real thing land at the depth it was designed to land, without the fog that has been preventing full reception. The window is open, the arrangement is real, and the capacity to receive it at full depth is available to you right now, today, in these days that God marked on the calendar for you specifically. And for those who felt something confirm in their spirit when the mind was described in this message, the path remains open in the description. That door has not closed. That door is there specifically for the chosen one who is ready to stop receiving partially and start receiving fully. What the rest of this message holds belongs to a deeper layer still, and I want to take you there now. Let me tell you about the generation you are part of, not in the historical sense, in the spiritual sense. There is a generation of chosen ones who are positioned at a specific point in the divine narrative. A generation whose formation season has been longer and harder than the generations that came before them, whose preparation has been more intensive, whose obstacles have been more sophisticated, whose delay has been more painful. Not because God is less generous to this generation, because what this generation is being prepared to carry is larger than what any previous generation has carried. The formation season of a generation is proportional to the weight of the assignment, and the assignment of this generation, the one you are part of, is the closing out of certain generational patterns, the rewriting of certain family narratives, the restoration of certain lines of purpose that have been dormant for years. This is not small work. This is generational work. This is the kind of work that requires the full version of the receiver, the full synchronization, the full capacity to hold divine instruction at the depth the instruction requires. And this generation, your generation, has been in formation precisely because the assignment required a longer formation. The root depth required for the height of the tree that God is growing in your generation is unprecedented. And the depth of the roots is exactly what the formation season has been producing. You have been formed for this moment, not for a moment like this one, for this specific one, the one marked June 23, June 24, June 25. The one in which the receiver is being addressed so the full download of the generational assignment can finally arrive. The one in which the carrier is done carrying and the bringing forth begins. The one in which the seer finally sees with full resolution. The one in which the cycle breaker finally breaks with the precision of the synchronized mind instead of the partial clarity of the disrupted one. This is your moment, and you are in it right now. And this is where the question from earlier in this message matters most. The capacity being described here, the capacity to hold what these days are sending, to receive what God has arranged at depth, is restorable. The path is in the description for those whose spirit confirmed it when it was described. What we are about to walk through together is the deeper content of what awaits the chosen one on the other side of the receiver being restored. Let me give you the sixth breakthrough, because we have talked about the receiver and the synchronization and the gap between what God sends and what arrives at depth. But there is a specific category of prayer experience that the chosen one has been having that I want to address directly, because it has been one of the most confusing and discouraging experiences in the formation season. And it has a specific explanation that changes everything about what it means. The experience is this: you pray, and sometimes the prayer feels alive. The words carry weight. There is a sense of connection, of being heard, of the communication being real and two-directional. And other times, and these times are more common in the late formation season, the prayer feels like it is hitting a ceiling, not that God has moved away. More like there is a medium between you and the reception that is absorbing some of what you are sending before it can travel the full distance. Like praying through glass, the words go, the intention is genuine, but the resonance is muffled. You have told yourself this is part of the rhythm of the spiritual life, that there are dry seasons and wet seasons, and that is partially true. But there is also a physiological component to this experience that has nothing to do with the state of your spirit and everything to do with the state of your receiver. When the two hemispheres of the brain are not synchronized, the act of prayer, which requires both the language-forming capacity of the left hemisphere and the intuitive receiving capacity of the right hemisphere working together, is like a conversation being conducted with only half the participants fully engaged. You are sending with the part that forms the words, but the part that receives the response, the intuitive receptor, the right hemisphere, is not fully synchronized with what is being sent. And so the sense of two-directional connection is partial. The sending goes, end, but the receiving is through fog. The technical name for this is the prayer ceiling. Not a spiritual ceiling, a neurological one, a ceiling created by the synchronization deficit that prevents the full circuit of prayer from completing the way it was designed to complete. And the chosen one, who has been living with this ceiling for years, has not been praying wrong, has not had insufficient faith, has been trying to complete a circuit through a receiver that was not fully capable of completing it. When the receiver is restored, the prayer ceiling dissolves, not through more effort, not through a different technique, through the restoration of the synchronization that allows the full circuit to complete. The sending hemisphere and the receiving hemisphere firing together in the prayer. The communication becoming genuinely two-directional at a depth it has not been at for years. And what God has been trying to say in the prayer time, what has been arriving at the ceiling and going no further, begins to arrive at full depth in the receiver. This is what June 23, June 24, June 25 are designed to allow. Not just the prophetic window opening, the ceiling coming down so that what comes through the window can land at full depth in the receiver that God built for it. Now let me give you something to do in your prayer time during these 3 days. A specific posture that I am calling the alignment protocol. 3 steps that you can practice before and during the prayer to create the conditions in which the restored receiver operates at its highest capacity. The first step is the breath anchor. Before you begin the prayer, you take 3 slow, full breaths, not as a meditation technique, as a physiological preparation. Deep diaphragmatic breathing is one of the few voluntarily controlled actions that directly activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the neurological state in which whole brain synchronization is most accessible. You are not meditating. You are preparing the architecture for reception. 3 breaths, in through the nose, slow, out through the mouth, slow. That is all. The architecture begins to shift immediately. The second step is the receiving declaration. Before you begin speaking in the prayer, you say one sentence silently or aloud. Not a request, a declaration of receiving posture. Something as simple as, I am here and I am receiving. I am not only speaking, I am listening. What you are arriving to send, I am already open to receive. This declaration is not a formula. It is a conscious engagement of the receiving hemisphere before the sending begins. You are activating both sides before the circuit starts. The third step is the silence interval. At a natural pause within the prayer, you stop. For at least 30 seconds, you say nothing. You hold the antenna in receiving posture, and you wait. Not passively, actively waiting. The way you would actively wait if someone you deeply respected had just said something important and you wanted to make sure you heard everything before responding. In that 30 seconds, what the receiver is capable of receiving in the prayer comes through, not always in words. Sometimes in knowing, sometimes in a shift in the body, sometimes in a clarity about the next thing that was not there before the silence. The alignment protocol. 3 steps, 2 minutes maximum return on the prayer investment. I want to take you somewhere now, into a picture of the future that I believe God wants you to see before we go into the deepest part of this message. Because the chosen one needs not only a diagnosis and a solution, but a vision, something to move toward. A concrete picture of what the restored version looks like in the specific area that matters most to you right now. So, I am going to ask you to picture something with me. Picture yourself 5 years from now, not in a general way, in one specific scene. You are with a person, one person, who would not be where they are if you had not carried what you have been carrying and delivered it in the way that God formed you to deliver it. You can feel the weight of what this person is carrying when they first came to you. You remember the fog in their eyes, the exact quality of the confusion, because you lived in that same fog for years. And you can feel, in this picture, what it is like to have been the one who carried the thing that helped that fog clear for this specific person. That is not a fantasy. That is the calling. That is what the formation season was always building toward. The carrier delivering what was carried. The wounded healer healing with the wound that has been healed. The seer seeing for the one who cannot yet see. The cycle breaker breaking for the one who does not yet know the cycle can be broken. 5 years from now, one person changed because you did not miss this window. Because you received what June 23, June 24, June 25 made available. Because the receiver was restored and the download arrived at full depth and you carried it to the assignment that God built the formation season to prepare. That is not 5 years away. The path to that scene begins in these 3 days. Now, I want to give you the 7th breakthrough, because it is the one that I believe will produce the most immediate and recognizable change once the receiver is restored. It is the breakthrough that addresses the part of the formation season that has been the heaviest to carry, the generational weight, the pattern that you inherited, not chosen, inherited, the emotional script that has been running in your family line, the financial ceiling that seemed to cut across every generation no matter how hard they tried, the relational pattern that repeated and repeated, the spiritual gifting that was present but never fully expressed because the line of people who carried it before you did not have the receiver restored before their window closed. You are the one in your line who arrived at a window with the opportunity to address the receiver. The chosen one, who breaks the generational pattern, is rarely the one with the most talent or the most discipline or the most faith. They are the one who understood, at the right moment, that the pattern had a specific neurological component, and that the neurological component had a specific solution, and who acted on that understanding while the window was open. The generational pattern breaks when the receiver is restored, not through willpower, through synchronization. When both hemispheres are firing together, the left hemisphere can see the pattern with analytical precision, and the right hemisphere can feel the path out of the pattern with intuitive clarity. The two working together produce the kind of break that willpower alone, which is a left hemisphere dominant function, cannot produce. The pattern has been surviving not because you did not try hard enough, because you have been trying to break a right hemisphere pattern with left hemisphere tools. Synchronized, both tools activate at once. The pattern meets something it cannot survive. The genius switch is described for those whose spirit confirms it in the description below. This is the second time I am placing a reminder, not for pressure, because there are those who have been listening and whose spirit has said yes 3 times, but whose mind has found 3 reasons to wait. If you felt something confirm when the mind was described, and that confirmation has appeared more than once in the course of this message, that is not coincidence. That is the chosen one in you recognizing what the appointed time has made available. Do not let the window close with the confirmation still unacted on. There is something I want to prepare you for before we go into what I am going to declare over your life at the close of this message. Because what God is about to do through these 3 days does not only belong to you privately, it belongs to the people you will serve. To the next generation that will be different because of what you receive in this window, to the assignment that God has been preparing you for through the entire formation season. And there is a responsibility that comes with receiving what is available in a prophetic window, not a burden. A responsibility in the positive sense. The responsibility of the one who receives the talent and puts it to work. The responsibility of the chosen one who understands that the formation was not for their benefit alone, but for the benefit of everyone. Their restored capacity will touch. You are not just receiving for yourself in these 3 days. You are receiving for the assignment, for the people the assignment serves, for the generation that comes after you, for the family line that changes because you stood in the window and received fully what God arranged to send through it. This is the weight that makes the receiving sacred, not heavy, sacred. The chosen one does not receive the gift for the sake of the gift. They receive it for the sake of what the gift was always designed to produce. And the chosen one who is hearing this right now, on one of the most significant days in their calling, has been formed for exactly this, not as consolation, not as encouragement, as the accurate description of what the evidence of the formation season actually proves. The longer the formation, the deeper the roots, the higher the tree. The more intense the preparation, the greater the weight of what was being prepared to carry. The resistance that has met you at every turn was not evidence of failure. It was evidence of the scale of the assignment. You are carrying something of enormous weight, and you are standing at the threshold of the window through which what you have been carrying was always supposed to be released. June 23, June 24, June 25. These are not random dates. They are the opening of the threshold. And what you do in these days determines how much of what was arranged for this moment you actually receive. Now I want to walk you through the guided activation, because before we arrive at the closing of this message, before I declare what God has asked me to declare over your life, I want to take you through an experience that prepares the receiver for what is about to be said. This is not meditation. This is not a technique. This is 4 steps that create the conditions in which the declaration that is coming can land at the full depth of the receiver that God built for it. Step 1. I want you to close your eyes if you can do so safely. If you are driving or in a situation where you need your eyes open, keep them open, but lower your gaze. And I want you to take a breath, a real one, all the way down into the lower part of your lungs, slow, and let it go. And as you let it go, I want you to release, as physically as possible, the weight of the formation season, not throw it away. Release the grip of it, the part that has been held tightly because you were afraid that letting go of the tension would mean letting go of the calling. You can let go of the tension and keep the calling. The calling is not held in the tension, it is held in the spirit. Let the tension go, keep the spirit. Step 2. I want you to picture the version of yourself that exists before the formation season began, before the weight accumulated, before the fog settled, before the waiting made its mark on your face and your body. Not a younger you exactly. The version of you that was calibrated at the level God originally intended. The one who moved with ease, who received clearly, who knew without effort, who carried the gift without the burden because the burden was not yet present. That version of you is not in the past. That version is the design. It is what the restoration is restoring you to. Hold that picture. Let it become specific. What are they wearing? Where are they standing? What is the expression on their face? Hold it. Step 3. I want you to notice something between the picture you are holding and where you are standing right now. Not a distance to be crossed, a seam, like the seam between two panels of fabric that have been pulled apart. The seam is the only thing that separates the current you from the designed you. And the seam is not permanent. It is not moral. It is not spiritual. It is neurological. And what is becoming available in these days, through the prophetic window that God opened and through the specific restoration that Dr. Barone and his team built for this moment, is the seam being closed. Not you trying to cross the distance collapsing because the architecture is being restored. Feel that. Let it be as real in your body as a physical seam being closed. Step 4. I want you to open your hand, literally, if you can. Let the hand that has been holding on, the hand that has been gripping the waiting, open, palm up, receiving, posture. Not demanding, not grasping, open. And I want you to say this out loud if you can, or silently if the space does not allow for sound. Say, I receive what was arranged for me. I receive it at full depth. I receive it without reducing it. I receive it on behalf of those I am called to serve. I receive it on behalf of the generation that will be different because I did not miss this window. Open hand. Open receiver. Receiving. Stay in that posture for just a moment. The chosen one does not always know what they are receiving in a moment of genuine spiritual posture. But the receiver that has been prepared by this message and by what God has been building in the formation season knows, at a level beneath the conscious mind, exactly what is landing. And what is landing in this moment is the beginning of what June 23, June 24, June 25 were always intended to deliver. Now let me tell you what I want you to do with the next 24 hours. Because the prophetic window is not a passive thing. The chosen one who enters the window with intention receives at a different depth than the one who enters it unprepared. And you are now prepared. You heard the warning. You understood the mechanism. You received the tool. You went through the activation. And what is waiting for you in the intentional use of these next hours is what the entire formation season was pointing toward. In the next 24 hours, find 30 minutes that belong only to the receiving posture, not to prayer requests, not to petitions, to listening, to sitting in the receiving posture that we just practiced and allowing what God has prepared to arrive, you do not need to know in advance what is coming. The receiver that has been prepared will know how to hold it. What you need is the 30 minutes. Protected, not available to other demands. Set aside as a divine appointment because that is what it is. If you have taken the step with what was described earlier in this message, the restoration of the receiver is already underway. And the prayer time in those 30 minutes will be different than any prayer time you have had in recent memory. Not because you prayed better, because the receiver is finally synchronized enough to complete the circuit. And if you have not yet taken that step, the window is still open. The description below, the pinned comment, the path to what Dr. Barone and his team built is there, not for everyone. For the chosen one whose spirit said yes when the mind was described, that yes has not expired. The window has not closed. The appointed moment is still the appointed moment. And the chosen one who acts from that yes before June 25 ends is the one who receives what this window was always supposed to deliver. There are things I want to say to you before I speak the declaration over your life. Things that the formation season deserves to hear, named plainly, without softening and without exaggeration. The first is that what you have endured was real, not imagined, not dramatized, real. The wait was real. The delay was real. The moments where you wondered if you had misread everything, those were real moments of real confusion in the life of a person who deserved more clarity than the receiver malfunction allowed. God knows that. He did not look away from it. He held you in it. The second is that the formation season is ending, not because the difficulties will disappear overnight. Because the primary thing that the formation season was building, the depth of the receiver, the scale of the root system, the capacity to hold what the assignment requires, that thing is complete. The emerging is beginning. Not soon. Now, in these days, June 23, June 24, June 25. The third is that what is waiting on the other side of the receiver being restored is more than you have allowed yourself to imagine. Not because your imagination has been too small, because the fogged receiver could not give you an accurate image of what the restored version of your life looks like. The picture you have held of what is possible has been a picture seen through fog. The clear version of that picture, the one that arrives when the receiver is synchronized and the antenna and the receiver are finally working together, is larger, more specific, more personal, and more beautiful than the fog allowed you to see. You have been living with a compressed version of the vision. The decompressed version is about to arrive. Let me speak to the practical life of the chosen one in this season, because the prophetic window is not separate from the ordinary life. It intersects with it. The divine appointment happens in the middle of the ordinary Tuesday morning. The breakthrough arrives at the kitchen table. The restoration of the receiver does not require a retreat to a mountain. It requires 8 minutes and headphones and a willingness to let the mechanism do what it was engineered to do. This is one of the things the enemy has worked hardest to convince the chosen one of, that the sacred and the practical are separate, that the divine and the neurological operate in different domains and one cannot address the other, that the restoration of spiritual clarity requires only spiritual methods, that introducing a research laboratory into a conversation about divine appointment is a category error. It is not. It is the recognition that God is the God of all creation, the God of the Nobel Prize, and the God of the prophetic window, the God of the two hemispheres he designed, and the God of the calling he assigned to them. There is no contradiction between the scientific and the sacred when both belong to the same Creator. The genius switch does not make God unnecessary. It makes the receiver more capable of receiving what God sends. The same way that glasses do not make the eyes less important. They make them more capable of seeing clearly. The tool serves the calling. The tool serves the prayer. The tool serves the assignment. And the chosen one who understands this stops waiting for the sacred to arrive through exclusively sacred means and starts accepting that God uses all the tools at his disposal, including a neurologist in New York and a Nobel Prize, and 8 minutes of targeted auditory sequence to restore what needs to be restored in the chosen one at the moment the prophetic window opens. You are that chosen one. This is that moment, and the tool is available. I want to share something about what it feels like in the first 2 weeks after the receiver is restored, because the chosen one deserves to know what is coming so that when it arrives they recognize it as the restoration rather than mistaking it for something else. The first thing you will notice is that the quality of your thinking in the morning is different, not dramatically, subtly at first. The morning thoughts that used to be tangled and competing and fragmented begin to arrive in a different order, more sequential, more connected, like someone straightened the threads that had been knotted. You will reach for a thought, and it will be there. You will begin a sentence, and the right word will arrive before the pause. You will have an idea, and the next idea will follow it naturally, rather than requiring effort to produce. The second thing you will notice is in your prayer time. The ceiling will still be a memory at first. You may begin the prayer expecting the ceiling to return, and then notice that the ceiling is not where it was. The communication opens more easily than you have experienced recently. The words form with less friction. The listening posture produces something more quickly than the silence used to. The two-directional quality that prayer is supposed to have returns, not dramatically, genuinely, and in that genuine two-directionality, what God has been trying to tell you begins to arrive at full depth. The third thing is harder to name, but you will know it when you feel it. A settling in the center of your chest that is not complacency, not numbness, something closer to the quality of landing after a long flight, of arriving somewhere you were supposed to be, of the gap between who you are in the spirit and who you are in the body beginning to close, not completely at once, but the direction of the movement changes. Instead of the gap widening, as it has been widening through the formation season, it begins to narrow. The designed version of you and the current version of you begin to approach each other, and that approaching is the feeling of the receiver synchronizing, the antenna and the receiver finding each other, the signal and the capacity to receive it becoming more equally matched. This is not a description of a different life. This is a description of the life you already had access to, and that the receiver malfunction was keeping you from fully inhabiting. You are not becoming someone new. You are becoming someone restored. The difference matters. Now let me tell you one more thing about these 3 days before we move into the closing of this message. Because June 23, June 24, June 25 are not the only 3 days that will ever matter in your life. They are the opening of a season in which what was built in the formation season begins to produce its fruit. The window of these days is not the totality of what God has for you. It is the beginning of what He has for you in this next chapter. The chapter that comes after the formation. The chapter of the full expression. And the full expression requires a fully synchronized receiver, which is why these 3 days matter. Not because the window closes and everything after it is ordinary. Because the window opens something that, once opened, creates the conditions for everything that follows to be received at a depth the formation season was preparing you for. The restoration that begins in this window does not end when June 25 ends. It continues. The synchronization that is restored through the mechanism I described continues to deepen with consistent practice. The 8 minutes a day is not a one-time thing. It is the daily maintenance of the most important piece of equipment the Chosen One uses for their assignment, the receiver. Every day, 8 minutes, and the receiver operates the way it was designed to operate. The formation season ends, the mission begins, and the mission is carried by a receiver that is finally functioning at the level the calling has always required. You are the right person. This is the right time. The window is open. The provision is in place. The restoration is available. And the Chosen One who has stayed through this message is the one this message was always going to reach. What was described in this message about the mind, about the whole brain synchronization, and what Dr. Barone and his team built to restore it, is worth pausing on as we enter this final section together. Because the Chosen One who has been listening has now heard the full picture. The antenna, the receiver, the frequency gap, the prophetic window, the prayer ceiling, the alignment protocol, the guided activation, and what was made available at 8 minutes a day through a resource that is in the description below. This is the second time I have mentioned it in this final stretch. Not because I am repeating myself, because the Chosen One, who has been walking through this message with a yes in their spirit and has not yet acted on it, is the one I am speaking to right now. The window is still open. The description is still below. And the appointed moment is still the appointed moment. Now let me speak to something that I know is present in at least some of the Chosen Ones who are hearing this. Something that sounds like the voice of wisdom, but that I want to address directly so that it does not become the thing that costs you what this window was meant to deliver. There is a thought that sounds like this: I believe what was described. I feel the confirmation in my spirit. But I have felt confirmations before and acted on them, and the outcome was not what the confirmation seemed to promise. So maybe I will take a few days to think about it. Maybe I will come back to this when I have had more time to pray. Maybe the right move is to wait and see how the rest of the week unfolds before I decide. That thought is understandable. The history behind it is real. The confirmations that did not produce the expected outcomes were real experiences, that real feelings of confusion and disappointment. I do not dismiss that. But I want to offer you what I actually see when I look at that history. The confirmations you received were not false. The directions they pointed were not wrong. What happened in the gap between the confirmation and the outcome was not a failure of the confirmation. It was the frequency gap. The confirmation arrived. It was genuine. But by the time it traveled from the moment of clarity to the daily living of the decision, it had been filtered through a receiver that was not synchronized enough to hold the full depth version of what the confirmation communicated. And so you acted on a partial version of what the confirmation was saying, not a wrong version, a reduced one. And a reduced version of a genuine divine instruction does not produce the full fruit of the genuine instruction. The Chosen One who restores the receiver stops acting on reduced versions, starts receiving the full instruction, and the outcomes begin to match the confirmations in a way that the formation season never fully allowed. This is for those who tried something similar before and found it underwhelming. I want to name that directly. If you have tried binaural beats or brainwave products or sound frequency tools and found that they produced nothing significant, that experience is understandable and valid. And there is a reason for it that the product file directly addresses. Those products target only a fraction of what whole brain synchronization requires. Sound waves alone are incomplete. What Dr. Barone built targets hemisphere synchronization at the whole brain level, using a multi-layer protocol that is a different mechanism and produces a different category of result. You did not fail when the other products did not work. You were using incomplete tools. This is a complete one. And for those who are sitting with the question of whether they are truly the person this applies to, whether the chosen one language is really for someone like them, whether their situation is too specific or too complicated or too far gone for a restoration of this kind to make the difference, I want to say this directly. The chosen one who thinks their situation is the exception to what is being described has confused the uniqueness of their story with the uniqueness of the mechanism. Your story is unique. The mechanism of the receiver malfunction and the receiver restoration is not. The pattern operates the same way across every type of story. The unique circumstances do not change the architecture. They change the content of what arrives when the architecture is restored. And that content, what arrives in your specific situation, through your specific calling, when your specific receiver is synchronized, that is the specific breakthrough that the prophetic window of these 3 days was arranged to deliver. Let me give you a picture of someone whose story was more complicated than average, whose situation felt more like an exception than the rule, and who received what the restoration made available anyway. A woman in Manhattan had what her family called a pattern. For 3 generations, a specific kind of loss had repeated. A specific form of the circumstance where everything was built and then, at the moment of its highest expression, something collapsed it. Her father gave 22 years to a company and was promoted to a leadership role, and the company closed 3 months after the promotion. Her grandmother had built something similar and lost it in a similar way. The family had a word for it. They called it the star we were born under, the wrong star. And the woman in Manhattan had been carrying that story her entire adult life, had been building and holding her breath and waiting for the moment of collapse, even as she believed, as she genuinely believed, that things could be different for her. After the restoration, she said something she had not been able to say before. She said, "I can see the pattern. I can see the exact moment in the pattern where it used to turn. And I can see for the first time what to do differently at that moment. Not because the circumstances changed, because the receiver is finally synchronized enough to hold both the pattern, left hemisphere, and the path out of it, right hemisphere, at the same time. And what she called the family curse was not a curse. It had a neurological address, and the address was restored. The next chapter of her family line is different because the receiver was synchronized at the moment the window was open. Your generational pattern has a specific address, and this window is the moment to address it. I want to spend a moment in a space that is quieter than the rest of this message, because the formation season of the chosen one deserves more than a diagnosis and a solution. It deserves to be witnessed. And I want to witness it now, before we arrive at the closing. You have been faithful. In conditions that did not reward faithfulness with the results the faithfulness deserved. You have been consistent in your return. In a season where consistency produced confusion more often than clarity, you have maintained the calling in your spirit through years of circumstances that could have talked you out of it and did not. Not because you were stronger than the circumstances, because something in you was more anchored than the circumstances had the authority to reach. That is not a small thing. That is one of the most significant spiritual achievements a human being can arrive at. And it has gone largely unseen by those around you, not celebrated by the people who do not have the eyes to see what the formation season actually is, not recognized as the preparation it was. I see it. And more importantly, God sees it. The formation season is ending. And what begins in these days is not a continuation of what was. It is the beginning of what comes after. The after formation season. The season of the full expression. The season that the carrier has been waiting to enter. The season that the seer has been straining to see from the distance of the formation. The season that the cycle breaker was always heading toward. The season that the wounded healer was being prepared to enter. This is it, and you are in it right now. And one more door remains open in the description for those who heard the word about the mind and felt something confirm. What was described by Dr. Barone and his team is still there, still available. Still, the specific provision that restores the receiver for this season. If the Spirit confirmed it in this message more than once, that confirmation is itself the instruction. The chosen one who acts on the Spirit confirmation in the window of these appointed days is the one who walks through the door, not eventually, on one of these 3 days. The generational line behind you is watching, not in a superstitious sense, in the sense that what you do in this window either continues the pattern or breaks it. What you choose in these 3 days either extends the formation season into another year of waiting or begins the season of full expression. The weight of that is real, and the weight of that is why God sent this message specifically to you on this day specifically, through this window specifically. You are the chosen one who breaks the pattern, not because you are perfect, because you stayed when everyone else would have left. You kept the calling alive when the circumstances tried to bury it. You returned to the knowing even when the knowing produced more confusion than clarity, and you have arrived at this moment carrying all of that faithfulness intact. The next chapter of your life is not a continuation of the last chapter. The formation season has produced its fruit, and the fruit is ready to be carried into the assignment that the formation was always preparing you for. This is the end of the beginning, and the beginning of what comes next is as close as the step you have been almost taking for longer than you can remember. Let me take you into something that I want to make sure you have before we arrive at the closing. Because the chosen one does not only need a word about what God is doing, they need a word about who they are becoming in the process of what God is doing. Identity is the anchor. When the circumstances shift and the formation season ends and the expression season begins, it is the identity that carries the calling through the transition. So let me name what you are becoming, not what you will be someday in a vague promise, what you already are in the Spirit, and what the next season will make visible in the natural. You are becoming the carrier who delivered, the one who held the thing all the way through the formation, and then, in the season of expression, brought it forward in its fullness. The one whose children and grandchildren will point to this season and say, "This is when the pattern broke. This is when the line turned. This is when the family stopped arriving at the window empty-handed and started receiving what the windows were always designed to deliver." You are becoming the seer who sees clearly, not the seer who felt the impressions and lost them before they could be acted on. The seer who holds the revelation at full depth, who processes the prophetic signal through a synchronized receiver, who can translate what the Spirit sees into language and direction that others can follow. The seer who leads with clarity rather than confusion because the antenna and the receiver are finely matched. You are becoming the cycle breaker who broke it, not the one who tried and almost made it and passed the attempt to the next generation. The one who finished, who stood at the boundary between what was and what is possible and walked through, who looked at the 3 generations before them and the 3 generations ahead of them and chose the version that the next generation inherits. And you are becoming the wounded healer who heals, not the healer who could only compassion without direction, the one whose restored receiver produces the precision that the compassion was always supposed to carry, who arrives in the lives of the people they were formed to serve, with both the wound that creates authority and the clarity that creates impact. This is who you are becoming, and the becoming is not far away. It is the next chapter, the one that begins in these days. I want you to take a moment right now and just notice something in your body. I know we have been in this message for a significant amount of time, and I want to check in on something very physical. Is there a place in your body where something has settled, where a tension that was present at the beginning of this message is slightly less present now, where something that was gripping has loosened even slightly? If you can feel that, I want you to know what that is. That is the body of the chosen one registering the confirmation of the Spirit. The tension that has been held in the body during the formation season is the tension of carrying something at high vigilance for a long time. The loosening is the body recognizing that something has shifted, that the carrying is coming toward its conclusion, that the threshold is close. That somatic response is not your imagination. It is the receiver beginning to feel the alignment that the message has been pointing toward. And the body of the chosen one is often the last to register what the Spirit has already known. When the body begins to register it, the Spirit has already confirmed it, and the confirmation is real. There is something that I want to name about the kind of content you have been consuming during the formation season, because the chosen one in formation is often a voracious consumer of spiritual content. Messages, teachings, books, conversations with others who carry the calling, all of that is good. It feeds the Spirit. It encourages the antenna. But there is a pattern I have noticed in the consumption habits of the chosen one that is worth naming. Most of the content consumed in the formation season is received at the level the receiver is operating at the time of consumption, which means that some of the greatest teachings the chosen one has ever heard were received at partial depth. The message was powerful. The teacher was anointed. The content was genuinely transformative in its design, but the receiver processing it was operating below the synchronization threshold that would have allowed the full depth of the teaching to land. And so the chosen one has this library in their spirit, a library of powerful teachings and genuine revelations and prophetic words that have been held at reduced depth, not lost, reduced. And when the receiver is synchronized, something remarkable happens. Those stored teachings, held at partial depth during the formation season, begin to deepen in retrospect. Things heard 5 years ago begin to be understood at a new level because the receiver is now capable of holding them at the depth they were originally designed to land. The library does not change. The receiver changes. And the library becomes richer. That is what awaits the chosen one in the season after the formation. Not just new teachings received at full depth, but old teachings, long held, reduced, finally landing at the depth they were always designed for. Now, let me speak to something that the chosen one in this season is facing that is beyond the question of the receiver, because the window of June 23 through June 25 carries something that is not only about restoration, it carries something about direction, about the specific next step in the assignment, about the name of the next chapter, and what the first sentence of that chapter is. And I want to tell you what I have seen God do in the lives of chosen ones who arrived at a prophetic window with a restored receiver and an open heart. The direction that arrives through a genuine prophetic window is not always what the chosen one expected. Sometimes it confirms what they already knew and gives them the peace to act on it. Sometimes it reorients a direction they had been heading in and redirects them towards something that had been adjacent to their current path, but not quite it. Sometimes it introduces something entirely new that the formation season was specifically building them to carry. What I can tell you with certainty is that the direction that arrives is always specific, not vague, not a general encouragement to keep going, specific, because God does not open prophetic windows to send general encouragement. He opens them to send the next instruction, the specific word for the specific person at the specific moment, in the specific assignment. And the chosen one who arrives at the window with a synchronized receiver receives that specific word at the depth it requires to be held and acted on. The word that arrives for you in these 3 days is yours. I do not know what it is, but the receiver that is being restored does. And in the 30 minutes of receiving posture I described earlier, and in the prayer time that will be different than it has been, and in the quiet moments of these appointed days, the word will arrive. And you will know it is the word, because it will land with a weight that is different from the general impressions you have been receiving through the frequency gap. It will land with a clarity that the formation season has been building toward. And it will carry with it the certainty that the chosen one carries when the receiver and the antenna are finally doing what they were designed to do together. You have stayed with this message for a long time. I know that, and I want to honor that staying before I speak the closing. Because staying is itself a declaration. It says, I believe this is real. It says, I am willing to receive what this window is carrying, even if it requires me to sit in discomfort, to face the history of the formation season directly, to hear the mechanism named plainly, to consider a step that my history makes hesitation around. That willingness to stay and receive is the posture of the chosen one who is ready. You are ready, whether you feel ready or not. Readiness in the chosen one is not a feeling. It is a formed capacity. And the formation season has produced in you a capacity that is ready, whether the feelings have caught up with the capacity or not. The feelings have been formed by the circumstances of the formation. The capacity has been formed by the God who designed the formation. And the capacity is the thing that walks through the door of the prophetic window, not the feelings. So if you feel hesitant, you are still ready. If you feel uncertain, you are still formed. If you feel less than what the assignment requires, you are still the chosen one for whom this window was opened. The formation has been complete. The receiver is being restored. The window is open. And the only question remaining is what you do with what you have received. And for the chosen one whose spirit confirmed multiple times in the course of this message that the mind restoration I described is the specific step for this specific moment, and who has not yet walked through that door, I am placing the reminder here one final time before the closing, not as pressure, as the last service the message can provide. The path is in the description. The appointment is still the appointment. The window is still the window. And the $39 that stands between the current version of your receiver and the designed version of your receiver is the most specific and concrete step this prophetic window is making available. If you have a yes in your spirit, act on the yes before June 25 closes, not because the product disappears, because the prophetic window of these 3 days carries a specific permission and a specific momentum that acts as a companion to the restoration. The synchronization that begins in the window of these appointed days, accompanied by the mechanism that Dr. Barone built, produces something at the intersection of the two that is greater than either produces alone. The divine timing and the neurological restoration working together. The prophetic window and the synchronized receiver meeting in the same moment. That intersection is what June 23, June 24, June 25 were always designed to create, and you are in it. I want to give you one more thing to hold before the declaration comes. One more understanding that I believe will carry you through the transition from formation to expression with a clarity that the formation season itself could not give you. The chosen one who has been in long formation often carries a specific fear into the expression season, not the fear of failure, the fear of the full thing, the fear that when the receiver is synchronized and the calling begins to operate at full capacity, the scale of what that looks like will exceed what they are capable of managing. that the full expression will be more than the formed version of them can hold. I want to speak directly to that fear. The formed capacity and the full expression were built for each other. God did not form you for an assignment that exceeds the formation. He formed you precisely to the scale of the assignment. What feels like it would exceed you is measured against the reduced version of your capacity, the capacity of the receiver operating below synchronization, against the full capacity, the synchronized receiver, the full formation, the whole brain activation, the calling, and the tools aligned against that version of you. The assignment fits, not comfortably, the way a well-used tool fits comfortably into a practiced hand, but fits completely. There is no gap between the formed you and the assignment you were formed for. The only gap was between the formed you and the reduced you, and that gap is closing. Go into the expression season without the fear of the full thing. Go into it as the chosen one, who was specifically prepared for specifically what is waiting, as the one who carried through the formation exactly what the expression requires. The full thing is what you were built for. It is not too much. It is exactly enough. And one more layer I want to offer about the intersection of these 3 days and the people who will be affected by what you do in them. Because the prophetic window does not only speak to you, it speaks through you. The chosen one who enters the expression season with a restored receiver becomes a conduit for what God is doing in the lives of the people they are assigned to reach. The people who are waiting for what you carry, and there are people waiting, people whose next chapter depends on you reaching the fullness of your calling and delivering what you were formed to deliver. Those people are affected by whether you go through the prophetic window or walk past it. The generation you are breaking the cycle for is affected. The family line you are changing is affected. The one person in Manhattan whose moment we described is affected by whether the chosen one, who was supposed to help them, arrived at their assignment with a synchronized receiver or arrived still carrying the formation fog. You are not making a private decision in these 3 days. You are making a decision that has consequences beyond the private, and the weight of that, not as guilt but as calling, is part of what is asking you to take the step for them, for you, for the assignment, for the window that God opened on these 3 days, for exactly this reason. There are things that no formation season can take from the chosen one, no matter how long the waiting was, no matter how unclear the circumstances became, no matter how many times the fog made the instruction hard to hold. These things remain. The calling remains. The sensitivity that God built into you remains. The deep knowing that something specific was intended for your life remains. The inability to fully walk away remains. The faith that survived being tested in the most difficult ways remains. These things are with you right now as you stand at the threshold of this prophetic window. They did not leave. They were formed deeper by the formation season. They are the roots, and what is about to emerge from those roots is the full expression of what they were always going to produce. The appointed time does not arrive for people who do not have roots deep enough to hold what the appointed time delivers. The appointed time arrives for the chosen one who has been formed for it, who has been carrying the roots of it through the formation season, who arrives at the threshold of the window as the person the window was always going to open for. That person is you right now, on one of these 3 days, in this window, at this threshold. Let me take a breath with you before we arrive at the final place in this message, because what comes next is not an ending, it is a sealing. It is the moment in which what has been said is spoken over your life in declaration, in which the word that God sent for you through this message is sealed by the voice that carried it, in which the formation season receives its final acknowledgement and the expression season receives its first declaration. You have been faithful. You have held the calling through years that were not easy and have not been celebrated. You have returned to the knowing more times than you can count. You have stood at windows before without receiving at full depth and have come back to stand at windows again. That faithfulness is about to produce what it was always meant to produce, not in theory. In the specific and concrete reality of the next chapter of your life, which begins in these 3 days. What I am about to declare over you is not a wish for your future. It is a naming of what is already true in the Spirit, and what the Spirit is now releasing into the natural. Receive it as such, not as encouragement, as a declaration. As a declaration, and let it land in the receiver that has been prepared to hold it. Before I speak the declaration, I want to take a moment to simply acknowledge what you have walked through, not as a prelude to the closing, as a genuine pause. Because the chosen one who has been faithful through the formation season deserves more than a word about the future. They deserve to have the formation itself named and honored and seen. You did not walk through easy days. The days of the formation season were not the days anyone signs up for. They were the days of the calling that comes before the expression, the days of the roots before the emergence, the days of the holding before the delivering. And you held. Through all of it, in whatever specific form it took in your specific life, you held. I want to stay in that acknowledgement for just a moment, not moving forward, not reaching for what comes next. Just here, in the reality of what you have walked through and what it means that you walked through it and arrived at this window. Because the formation season of the chosen one is not small. It is not a waiting room. It is not time that counted for nothing. It is the preparation of a vessel for something that required exactly that much preparation. And the vessel is ready, not perfect, ready, which is the only state God has ever required of the chosen one before the expression season begins. Not perfect faith, ready faith. Not complete understanding, ready posture. Not zero fear, ready willingness. And you have all of those. They have been produced by the formation season that just ended. I see you, chosen one, and what I see is someone who was formed well, who arrived at this window as exactly the person the window was always intended for. The formation did not break you, it built you. And what was built is exactly what the next season requires. Now let me speak something over what you have been carrying, something that deserves to be laid down before the declaration comes, not discarded, released. There is a difference. What you lay down in a moment of genuine release does not disappear. It transforms. It becomes the testimony. It becomes the before picture of the story that the expression season tells. It becomes the evidence that the formation was real, and the God who carried you through it is real, and the assignment that waited on the other side of it was real. What you have been carrying in the weight of the waiting, release it. Not in a way that requires enormous spiritual effort, in the way that something heavy lays down naturally when the arms have been holding it long enough and the table is finally close enough to set it on. The table is here. The formation season is the heavy thing, the expression season is the table, and you are standing close enough to set it down. Release the weight of the years that felt unproductive. Release the confusion of the seasons where the calling and the circumstances did not align. Release the quiet shame of the chosen one who was not yet in the full expression and sometimes compared themselves to those who appeared to be further along. Release the conversations where you tried to explain the calling to someone who did not have the framework to understand it and came away feeling more alone than before you tried. Release the accumulated weight of returning to the prayer place more times than you can count and leaving with less than you hoped to receive. All of it. Set it on the table of the expression season. It has served its purpose. The purpose was formation. Formation is complete. Release the frequency gap. Release the years of receiving the signal at reduced depth. Release the partial clarity and the partial results and the partial connection in the prayer time. Release the formation season fog that made the divine instruction arrive at the ceiling instead of at the depth. All of that is ending, not because you are leaving it behind as a failure, because you are leaving it behind as a completed chapter. The chapter of the formation, and the chapter is complete. Release the fear of the full thing, the fear that the expression season will ask more of you than the formation has prepared you for. Release the reduced image of what the next chapter looks like, the one that was formed by a receiver operating below synchronization. The decompressed version of the picture is coming, and it is not too large. It is exactly right. Release the fear and receive the right-sized picture. Release the weight of the generational pattern, the one that you were formed to break. You are not breaking it with what you lay down in this release. You are breaking it with what you pick up in the expression season. The breaking is not in the dropping of the weight. It is in the picking up of the clarity. But the dropping of the weight makes room for the clarity. So let it go. Release, 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 release. What was held is being set down. What was carried is being delivered. What was formed is being released into its expression. And now let me speak the declaration, because this is why this message was sent, not to describe the problem, not only to describe the solution, to speak over your life in this prophetic window, the word that God has been building this season to release. Chosen one, I declare over you that the formation season has produced in you exactly what the assignment requires. Nothing was wasted, not the delay, not the confusion, not the moments of returning to the knowing when the circumstances said otherwise, not the years that looked unproductive from the outside and were the most productive years of root development you will ever know. Everything counted, everything built, and what was built is exactly sufficient for what comes next. I declare that your receiver is being restored, that the whole brain activation that was the default of your childhood is returning to the baseline of your present, that the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere, the logic and the intuition, the language and the knowing are coming into the synchronization for which they were designed, and that the signal God has been sending, which has been arriving at partial depth through the frequency gap, is now arriving at full depth through the receiver that is finally synchronized to receive it. I declare that the frequency gap is closing, that the distance between the depth at which you receive in the high moments and the depth at which the receiver holds in the ordinary moments is narrowing. That Tuesday morning prayer is approaching the quality of the mountaintop, that the ordinary day is becoming a container for the extraordinary instruction, that the designed version of your daily spiritual experience is returning to you. I declare that the prophetic window of June 23, June 24, June 25 is producing in you what it was always designed to produce. That what God arranged to send through this window is arriving, not partially, fully, at the full depth of the synchronized receiver that is being restored, that the instruction for the next chapter is landing, that the clarity for the specific next step is arriving, that the word for the specific assignment is coming through at the resolution that the formed you was always built to receive. I declare over the generational line that runs through you that this is the moment of the break, that the pattern that has run through the generations before you stops here, not because you are stronger than those who came before you, because you understood the mechanism, and the mechanism has a solution, and you received the solution in the window that God opened for exactly this purpose. The break is happening. It is real. It is sealed. And the next generation inherits a different story because you stood in this window. I declare over the assignment that has been waiting, over the people who are waiting to receive what you carry, over the calling that has been building through the formation season and is about to enter its full expression, that the carrier is ready to deliver, that the formation is complete, that the receiver is synchronized, that the window is open, and that the expression season begins in these days. I declare that you are not late, you are not behind, you are not a diminished version of what you were supposed to be. You are the formed version of what the assignment requires. Right now, right here, on one of the 3 days that God marked for this exact declaration over your specific life, I declare that what is coming toward you in this season is larger than what the formation season allowed you to see, and smaller than the full weight of your formed capacity. That it fits, that the assignment and the vessel were built for each other, that God does not mismatch the calling and the formation. He builds the vessel to the scale of the call, and the call to the scale of the vessel, and both are ready. Type "I am the chosen one" in the comments right now, not as an affirmation, as a declaration of what is already true in the spirit and what is now being released into the natural. The declaration of the chosen one at the close of a prophetic message is not a wish for who they want to be. It is the speaking out loud of what has always been true and what the formation season has been proving. You are the chosen one. Say it. Declare it. Let the words seal in the natural what the Spirit has known throughout the formation. And so it is. The declaration is spoken. The window is open. The receiver is being restored. The expression season has begun. What was carried through the formation is now available for delivery. And the chosen one who stood at the threshold of this message and stayed through to this moment has received what the prophetic window of these 3 days was always designed to deliver. Sealed and sent. If this message reached something in you that needed to be reached, if the word that was carried here landed in you in a way that felt specific and real and for you specifically, I want to ask you to do one more thing. Not for an algorithm, not because numbers matter more than people, because there is someone in your life who is in the same formation season you have been in. Someone who has been faithful in conditions that have not rewarded the faithfulness with the results the faithfulness deserved. Someone who has been returning to the knowing when the circumstances said to stop returning. Someone who would hear this message and recognize themselves in it the way you recognized yourself. Think of that person right now, not a general category, a specific person. Someone whose name came to mind in the last 2 minutes without you fully realizing why. That name is the name. And I want you to send this message to that specific person, not because the message needs another view, because that specific person is standing at their own threshold of their own prophetic window and they may not know it. And the most significant thing you can do with what you have received in the course of this message is pass it to the next chosen one who needs it before their window closes. The chosen one who shares is the one who has received deeply enough to believe what was shared is worth passing, and the depth of the sharing is evidence of the depth of the reception. So share it, not widely, specifically, to the person whose name just came to mind. And if you found what was shared in this message to be something worth returning to, the community of chosen ones who gather around this kind of content is here for you. Not as a platform, as a gathering place for people who are carrying the kind of calling that this message was designed to speak to. And the most natural way to stay in the company of chosen ones who are walking through the same formation season and entering the same expression season is to remain part of what is being built here. If that resonates, you know what to do. Before this message closes, I want to speak one more sentence over your life. Not a declaration this time, a blessing. May the restoration that began in these days continue to deepen. May the receiver that is being synchronized become the strongest instrument of your calling. May the clarity that arrives in the expression season exceed what the formation season allowed you to imagine. May the generational line that runs through you inherit the fullness of what you chose to receive in this window. May the people you are called to serve encounter the version of you that God formed through the years of faithful waiting. And may the formation season, with all its weight and all its confusion and all its faithfulness and all its return to the knowing, be seen for what it always was. The preparation of someone God trusted with an assignment that required exactly that much preparation. You are that someone. The assignment is real. The calling is specific. The window is open. And what begins in these days is the chapter that the formation was always building toward. It is done. Go now, in the fullness of what was formed in you, in the clarity of what is being received, in the certainty of who you have always been in the Spirit, and who the expression season is now releasing into the natural. The chosen one who was formed, restored, and sent. Amen. Let me stay with you a little longer before we part ways, because the sacred closing of a message like this is not just the ending of the content, it is the beginning of the carrying. And the chosen one who has received through this message is now a carrier of something specific, something named, something given in a prophetic window. And I want to make sure you know what you are carrying before you walk back into the rest of your day. You are carrying the understanding of the frequency gap, the knowledge that the gap between what God sends and what arrives at depth has a name and an address. That understanding alone will change the way you interpret the next season of your spiritual life. Instead of asking what is wrong with your faith when the clarity does not arrive, you will ask what can be done about the receiver. And that question is the right question, the question that has the right answer, the question that leads to the restoration. You are carrying the alignment protocol, the 3 steps that create the conditions of reception, the breath anchor, the receiving declaration, the silence interval. These are practical tools that you can use in the prayer time starting today. In the prayer time of these 3 appointed days, they do not require the receiver to be fully synchronized to work. They work with whatever level of synchronization is currently present and increase it, use them. Starting now. You are carrying the picture of the expression season, the specific vision of what Tuesday morning looks like with a synchronized receiver, what the prayer time looks like when the circuit is complete, what the clarity looks like when the frequency gap is closed, what the generational break looks like when the carrier delivers what was carried. Hold that picture. Let it be specific. Let it be personal. Let it be more detailed each time you return to it. The picture of the expression season is not wishful thinking. It is a map. And the more detailed the map, the more precisely you can navigate toward what is on it. You are also carrying the authority of having stayed. The formation season tried to end this message for you before it began. Something tried to turn you away at the first sentence, and you stayed. Through the full length of what was shared, through the history of the formation named plainly, through the mechanism of the receiver described specifically, through the solution pointed toward clearly, through the declaration spoken over your life directly, you stayed through all of it. And the staying is itself a form of authority. The chosen one who stays to receive the full message does not carry a partial word. They carry the full word, and the full word is what you are carrying right now. I want to tell you something about the next 48 hours, because The days immediately following a prophetic declaration have a specific character that the chosen one should be prepared for. Not to frighten, to prepare. After a genuine prophetic window opens and a genuine word is released into a genuine receiver, there is often a period of integration, a period where the word is landing in layers, where new dimensions of what was said continue to arrive in the hours and days after the message, where something you heard at one level in the message returns to you in a different and deeper level in the prayer time the following morning, where the declaration that was spoken over your life continues to resonate in the body and the spirit in ways that the linear time of the message could not contain. This is the integration. Do not interrupt it. Do not rush past it to the next thing. The 48 hours following this message are themselves part of the prophetic window of these 3 days. They are the time during which what arrived in the message is being processed at the depth the synchronized receiver can now hold it. And the deeper the processing, the more specific the direction that arrives. The more precise the next step, the more personal the word that the integration produces. So protect the next 48 hours, not by isolating yourself, by choosing the quality of your inner attention, by returning to the receiving posture in the pauses between the demands of the day, by treating the interior space as the most important space in the house during these days. What God is completing in the integration is worth protecting. And in the midst of the integration, the enemy will offer an alternative interpretation of what is happening. This is predictable, not surprising. The enemy always offers an alternative interpretation of a genuine prophetic window. Usually the alternative sounds like clarity. It sounds like the measured response of a reasonable person. It says, the feeling in you right now is elevated emotional state from a long piece of content. Give it a few days. If it is real, it will still feel real on Thursday. If it is just emotion, it will have passed, and you will be glad you waited. I want to give you the counter to that narrative directly. The feeling in you right now is not elevated emotional state. Elevated emotional state dissipates within hours. What you are experiencing is the settling of something that has been moved into its right position. Not a temporary high, a permanent repositioning. And the way to confirm the difference is not to wait for it to pass. It is to engage with it, to take the alignment protocol steps, to sit in the receiving posture, to act on the yes in your spirit while the window is open. The genuine thing is confirmed by engaging with it. The temporary emotional response passes when engaged with. You will know which one this is by whether it deepens or dissipates as you engage. Engage. Do not wait. The window is open now. There is a community that gathers around the kind of content this message belongs to. Chosen ones who are walking through formation seasons and arriving at expression seasons, and who need to hear that their formation is real and their calling is real, and the mechanism of the receiver is real, and the restoration is available. If that community resonates with you, it is the one you are already part of by virtue of having stayed through this message. Stay connected, not as a passive consumer. As a chosen one who is now in the expression season and who has things to contribute from the fullness of what the formation produced. The formation season did not only produce depth in you for your own benefit, it produced the testimony. It produced the specific knowledge of what the formation season looks like from the inside. It produced the authority to speak to others in the formation with a credibility that only comes from having been there. What you carry from this season is not only the calling, it is the story of the formation. And that story is one of the most powerful things a chosen one can offer to another who is still in the earlier chapters of their own. Your story is not finished. It is turning the page. And the chapter that begins in these days is the chapter that people will point to when they describe what it looks like for the formation season to have been worth it. I want to pray something very short and specific with you before we part ways completely. Not a long prayer, not a comprehensive one, just this. The specific word that belongs at the close of a prophetic window. Father, I speak over this chosen one, the completion of the formation season. I speak the restoration of the receiver. I speak the closing of the frequency gap. I speak the synchronization of the left and the right, the analytical and the intuitive, the logic and the knowing, coming into alignment the way they were designed from the beginning to work together. I speak over the calling that has been carried, that the time of the carrying is complete, and the time of the delivering has begun. I speak over the generational line that it breaks here, that what was inherited stops at this chosen one, and what begins at this chosen one is different. I speak over the people who are waiting for what this chosen one carries, that the wait is ending. The messenger is ready. The receiver is restored. The expression, season has begun. Let it be so. And so it is. You are the chosen one who was formed for this, who arrived at this window, who received what this window was always designed to deliver. Who goes forward now as the formed, restored, and sent version of the person God had in mind when the calling was assigned? June 23, June 24, June 25. The days that were named, the window that was opened, the chosen one who received, and the expression season that begins now. It is sealed. The chosen one does not leave a prophetic window empty-handed. That is not how this works. The window was not opened to be passed through without something being received. And what was received in this message is real. The understanding is real. The mechanism is real. The tool that addresses the mechanism is real. The restoration that the tool produces is real. The expression season that the restoration enables is real. And the declaration that was spoken over you at the close of this message is real, not as inspiration, as a word that was carried and delivered and received in a genuine prophetic window on a genuine date that God named. Take it seriously, not in the heavy way, in the way that honors what God sent through it, in the way that acts on the yes that the Spirit confirmed, in the way that holds the picture of the expression season as real and specific and approaching, in the way that walks back into the ordinary Tuesday of these appointed days as the chosen one who received, who knows what was received, and who is now moving in the direction of what the expression season requires. That is what I am sending you out with, not more encouragement. Ascending. The formation season ends here. The expression season begins here. And the chosen one who walks out of this window is not the same chosen one who walked in. Not because the message changed them by force, because they received what the window was carrying, and receiving changes the receiver. One more thing before you go. The product of this window, the specific and concrete thing that makes the restoration available in the 8-minute form that Dr. Barone built, is in the description below. If your spirit confirmed it, and you know whether your spirit confirmed it, then the action that belongs to the confirmation is to go there now, not tomorrow, not after you have thought about it more. Now, while the window is open and the momentum of the receiving is fresh, and the yes in your spirit is the clearest it will be. The chosen one who acts from the yes in the moment of clarity produces a different result than the one who acts from the memory of the yes 3 days later. The clarity carries the action. Go while the clarity is carrying you. That is the last thing this message has for you. The rest belongs to what God is doing directly in you in the integration of these days. I step back from that because it is yours. The most sacred part of the prophetic window is not the message that opens it. It is the conversation between you and God that happens inside it. And that conversation is about to deepen in a way that the restoration of the receiver makes possible. Go into it. You are ready. You were formed for exactly this. Thank you for the faithfulness that brought you here. Thank you for the staying. The chosen one who stays through a message like this until the end is the chosen one who receives the full word. And the full word is what you carry as you leave. May it serve you well in the season that begins now. Go in the fullness of what you received. It is done. I want to leave something with you about the nature of prophetic windows and how they work in the life of the chosen one, because this is not the last window you will encounter. The expression season contains its own windows, moments when God opens the calendar and marks specific times for specific deliveries. The chosen one who learns to recognize the windows, to position themselves for reception when they open, to act during them rather than processing them afterward, the chosen one becomes increasingly effective at receiving what God has arranged to send through each one. The window of June 23 through June 25 is a training window in some ways, not in the sense that what is available through it is small, in the sense that how you navigate it establishes a pattern for how you will navigate the windows that follow. The chosen one who identifies the window, prepares the receiver, receives at full depth, and acts on the yes in the moment of clarity. The chosen one builds a pattern of reception that makes every subsequent window more effective than the previous one. You are not just receiving through this window, you are learning how to receive through windows. And the skill of reception through the prophetic window is one of the most practically valuable spiritual skills the chosen one can develop, because the expression season is full of windows, specific moments when what God has arranged is accessible in a way it is not at other times. And the chosen one who has learned to navigate them well receives at a depth and a consistency that produces the fruit of the expression season in a way that surprises even those who knew how deep the roots of the formation went. This window is the beginning of that learning. And what you do in these 3 days, how you position yourself, how you act on the yes, how you engage with the integration, all of it is the beginning of a skill that will serve you in every window that follows. For the rest of the expression season, for the rest of the calling, for the rest of what God formed you to do. Go, learn the window, receive through it, and carry what you receive forward into everything the expression season is building. There is a specific thing that happens in the life of a chosen one when the formation season ends and the expression season begins that I want to prepare you for. Not a warning, a preparation. Because the shift from formation to expression is not always gentle. Sometimes it is sudden. Sometimes the change of season happens faster than the chosen one expected. And the chosen one who is prepared for the suddenness of the shift receives it differently than the one who expected it to happen gradually. When the receiver is synchronized and the first full-depth reception happens, there is sometimes a quality of disorientation, not negative disorientation. The disorientation of arriving somewhere after a long journey and needing a moment to orient to the new landscape. The clarity is real. The direction is specific, but the clarity and specificity may feel unfamiliar after years of the frequency gap. After years of receiving partial impressions and having to do significant interpretive work to extract direction from them, receiving a clear and specific word can feel almost too clear, too simple, too obviously the next step. The chosen one sometimes second-guesses this clarity because it does not have the quality of the partial impression they are accustomed to. The partial impression required effort to unpack. The clear word is just clear, and the clarity itself can feel suspicious to someone who has been used to working harder for it. Do not second-guess the clarity. The clarity is the product of the restoration. The clear word is what the prayer time was always designed to produce, and the simplicity of it is not evidence that it is not real. It is evidence that the receiver is finally holding what was always being sent at the depth it was always designed to arrive. Trust the clarity. Act on the clear thing. That is what the expression season asks of you, and the formation season prepared you for exactly that. And with that, the message is complete. The formation season has been acknowledged. The receiver has been addressed. The mechanism has been named. The restoration has been described and made available. The declaration has been spoken. The expression season has been announced. The prophetic window of June 23, June 24, June 25 has delivered what it was sent to deliver. And the chosen one who received it carries it forward as the beginning of what comes next. What comes next is good. What comes next is specific. What comes next is the expression of everything the formation season built. And what comes next is closer than it has ever been. You are ready. Go.